It is a pleasure to accompany you on this journey into such deep and tranquil reflections. I hope this story offers you moments of profound serenity and insight. Let your mind be guided into a world of peace and contemplation as we begin. The year is 1620. Outside these thick ancient plaster walls, the city of Isfahan pulses with the vibrant, restless energy of the Safavid Empire. The clatter of horse-drawn carts on cobblestones, the distant call of merchants and the cooling desert breeze. But here, inside this sanctuary, time does not merely pass, it breathes. You are stepping into a world where the noise of the 17th century vanishes, replaced by the soft rhythmic hush of a solitary scholar. The air is heavy, not with tension, but with the scent of dried rose petals, the bitter warmth of freshly steeped black tea, and the dry, comforting dust of aging parchment. Tonight there is no empire to govern, no celestial event demanding urgent calculation. There is only the brass. Rest your eyes and imagine the scene. A low, dark wooden desk illuminated by the amber flicker of a single oil lamp. Before you lies a masterpiece of human ingenuity, an astrolabe cold and heavy, waiting to be awakened. As we begin this journey into the stillness of the past, focus on the sound of the cloth against the metal. Hear the steady hypnotic friction. Feel the temperature of the room dropping as the night deepens, wrapping this study like a cocoon. There is nothing to do but watch, listen, and find the quiet rhythm of a life devoted to the stars. Let the world outside fade. You are here in the heart of Isfahan, and for the next several hours, the only thing that matters is the gentle polish of brass under the light of the moon. Breathe in, breathe out, and let the history of this moment ground you. The room is octagonal, a structural echo of the very geometry etched into the instruments resting upon the desks. The floor is covered in thick hand-woven carpets dyed in deep indigo and madder-root red, swallowing the sound of any movement. The scholar, a man whose name has been lost to the shifting sands of time, but whose dedication remains vivid, moves with the deliberate, unhurried grace of one who understands the true pace of the cosmos. He sits cross-legged on a silk cushion. His movements are circular, precise, and infinitely slow. In his right hand, he holds a scrap of fine soft wool darkened by years of use. With a steady, patient pressure, he traces the outer limb of the astrolabe. Swish, soft, rhythmic swish. The metal groans slightly under the friction, a faint metallic whisper that tells of 1,000 nights spent observing the constellations. As the cloth passes over the raised engravings, the brass begins to catch the light of the lamp, shifting from a dull, oxidized ochre to a brilliant honeyed gold. Each stroke is a meditation. He isn't just cleaning a tool, he is communing with the heavens. Every line on the plate represents a coordinate, a bridge between the observer on earth and the infinite expanse above. By cleaning the instrument, he is ensuring that when he eventually takes it to the roof to track the transit of a planet, his vision will be clear and his measurements will be true. The tea in the ceramic cup beside him has gone cold, but he does not reach for it yet. His focus is absolute. The oil lamp flickers, a tiny orange heart beating against the encroaching shadows. It casts long, distorted silhouettes of his hands against the wall, making it look as if a giant, ancient observer is working alongside him, mirroring his labor. This is the beauty of the study. It is a world reduced to the essential. There is no urgency here, only the necessity of care. In 1620, technology was not a frantic sprint of innovation. It was a slow, deliberate conversation with nature. To polish the brass was to respect the craft, and to respect the craft was to acknowledge one's place in the universe. Can you hear it? The faint, dry sound of the wool against the brass is the heartbeat of this room. Let it lull you, let the shadows on the walls become your own rhythm. There is no tomorrow to worry about, and there is no past to regret. There is only the brass, the light, and the quiet. unending work of a scholar in Isfahan. The patterns on the astrolabe are complex, dials, pointers, and scales meant to map the movement of the sun and stars across the meridian. As he cleans, he traces the Great Bear, the path of the ecliptic, and the hidden degrees of latitude. He knows these lines by heart, not just by sight, but by the texture of the metal beneath his thumb. It is a tactile language of the cosmos, one that has been perfected over generations of astronomers. The silence of the room is not empty. It is thick with the weight of centuries. Outside the high, narrow window, the blue hue of the late evening has deepened into a rich velvet black, characteristic of the Persian desert night. The city of Isfahan, with its grand mosques and bustling bazaars, has settled into a soft slumber, leaving our scholar in his quiet corner of the world. He pauses, lifting the heavy brass astrolabe toward the flickering lamp. He turns it slowly, watching as the light catches the newly polished surfaces. The rete, the intricate star-mapping part of the instrument, shimmers like a collection of constellations captured in metal. He runs his index finger along the edge of the matter, the main body of the astrolabe, feeling for any lingering tarnish or imperfection. There are none. Every edge has been burnished to a mirror finish, reflecting the dancing flame of the oil lamp back onto his own face, which is calm, steady, and illuminated by a quiet sense of satisfaction. He set the instrument down on a soft, velvet-lined cloth and exhales a long, slow breath. The room smells of cedarwood and the cooling embers of the charcoal brazier that had warmed the study earlier in the day. Beside him, a stack of vellum scrolls rests on a carved wooden side table. These scrolls contain the meticulously recorded observations of his predecessors, men who stood on these same roofs in years past, looking up at the same unwavering stars. He reaches for one of the scrolls, the parchment dry and sturdy to the touch. It is a map of the heavens, annotated in elegant, sweeping calligraphy. By candlelight he unfolds it, the edges curling naturally as if they remember the shape of the cylinder they were once rolled into. He compares the diagrams on the paper to the engravings on the brass. They align perfectly. It is a moment of profound intellectual harmony. The tool in his hand is a physical manifestation of the mathematics on the page. It is science, art, and philosophy merged into one tangible object. As he leans back, the floorboards beneath the heavy carpets emit a faint welcoming creak. He is not just an astronomer. He is a keeper of a lineage of knowledge that stretches back to antiquity. In the solitude of this study, he understands that the work he is doing, this gentle, repetitive maintenance of his tools, is an act of preservation that transcends his own lifespan. He is preparing the instrument for the next observer, the next student who will come after him, just as he had come after his teacher. He stretches his arms, feeling the stiffness in his shoulders ease. The night is quiet, save for the occasional soft scuffling of a nocturnal creature in the courtyard below or the rustle of a moth against the parchment paper. He picks up his tea, now lukewarm and infused with the subtle lingering essence of rosewater. He takes a small deliberate sip, letting the warmth spread through his chest. He turns his gaze toward the small window, which is positioned to frame a perfect patch of the night sky. The stars are visible there, cold and brilliant, piercing the darkness with their ancient light. He knows exactly where he stands in relation to them. He does not need a clock to know the time. He can feel it in the shifting shadows and the cooling of the air. The astrolabe is his bridge to that infinite expanse. He knows that in the coming hours, as the constellation of Lyra climbs higher, he will step out onto the roof to take his measurements. But for now, the polishing is enough. The act of preparation is as much a part of the science as the observation itself. It is a grounding ritual, a way to calibrate not just the brass, but his own mind. He closes his eyes for a moment, listening to the silence, letting the stillness of the room sink into his bones. There is no urgency. There is no anxiety. There is only the immense comforting stability of the universe as it revolves slowly and predictably overhead. He is exactly where he is meant to be, doing exactly what is required, in a city that sleeps under the watchful gaze of the infinite. The details of the room are soft and indistinct in the dim light, but the astrolabe remains the focal point, a golden anchor in the darkness. He picks up the wool cloth once more, this time focusing on the alidate, the sighting rule on the back of the instrument. It is a delicate, precise piece of engineering, designed to be moved with extreme accuracy to measure the altitude of celestial bodies. He polishes it with the same tender care, moving his thumb in small circular motions. He thinks of the distance the light from the stars has traveled to reach his eye, and how this small tool allows him to harness that light and turn it into knowledge. It is a humbling thought, one that brings a gentle smile to his face. He is not a master of the universe. He is its humble servant, a chronicler of its movements. And as he works, the rhythmic sound of the cloth against the metal continues, a steady, soothing pulse that marks the passage of the night. The oil lamp flickers, a tiny glowing orange eye amidst the encroaching shadows of the study. Each time the flame dances, the golden engravings on the brass astrolabe seem to shift and transform, as if the stellar map itself were coming alive under the scholar's touch. He reaches for a small, shallow tray filled with a fine abrasive powder, a mixture of ground walnut shells and a touch of jeweler's rouge. It is the secret to the final luster, the way to make the brass not just clean but radiant. He dips a clean dry corner of his cloth into the powder. His movements fluid and practiced. He applies it sparingly, for he knows that over-polishing can wear away the very lines he seeks to preserve. The air in the room is still, save for the faint powdery scent of the abrasive and the ever-present calming aroma of dried rosebuds. He shifts his posture, settling more comfortably onto the cushions. The weight of his own body feels heavy, grounded against the earth. He begins to work on the Rita again, his fingers navigating the intricate vine-like branches that denote the positions of the fixed stars. He moves the cloth in long, sweeping arcs, following the curves of the ecliptic. It is an act of deep focus, a form of active meditation that requires his complete attention. Outside, the wind has picked up slightly, whistling a soft, low note through the gaps in the window frame, but it does not disturb him. He is entirely enclosed within this bubble of light and work. The world of 1620, with its political shifts and trade routes, feels like a distant dream, a secondary reality compared to the immediate, tangible truth of the brass instrument. He pauses to check the progress, turning the astrolabe so the lamplight rakes across the surface. The result is striking. The metal, previously subdued, now glows with a warm inner fire. The engraved coordinates, the lines of altitude, the azimuths, the circles of constant declination, stand out in sharp dark relief against the polished surface. He runs his fingertip over the central pin, the pivot that allows the parts of the instrument to rotate, ensuring that it moves with a smooth, silent grace. It is perfect. There is a profound sense of rightness in this. By ensuring his instrument is in top condition, he is honoring the astronomical tradition that has flourished in Persia for centuries. He is part of a grand, unbroken chain of inquiry that spans across deserts and generations. He sets the cloth down and leans back, stretching his arms toward the arched ceiling, where the plaster has been carved into intricate geometric muqarnas, honeycomb structures that seem to trap and dissolve the shadows. He enjoys the feeling of his muscles lengthening, the release of tension that has been building up through the hours of steady, focused labor. The tea in his cup is now cool, but he finds he does not mind. He takes a long drink. The flavor of the rosewater subtle and refreshing, a reminder of the gardens that bloom outside these walls during the day. He thinks of those gardens, of the way the light hits the blue tiled domes of Isfahan, and he feels a surge of quiet, deep-seated gratitude. His life is one of simplicity and intellectual rigor, a path he has chosen with full awareness of the beauty it holds. He looks back down at his work. The astrolabe is a microcosm of the heavens, a way to hold the sky in one's hand. He wonders, as he often does, what it would be like to see the universe from above, to watch the dance of the planets without the filter of the atmosphere. But then he realizes that the beauty of his craft lies precisely in that struggle, in the effort to understand the infinite through the finite, to capture the vastness of space within the narrow confines of a brass plate. This is the scholar's study, a place where the boundaries between the human and the cosmic blur. He feels the coolness of the night air beginning to permeate the room, a sign that the witching hour is approaching and the time for his true observation will soon be upon him. He will step out onto the roof, the heavy brass instrument tucked under his arm, and he will look up, his mind sharpened and his tools perfected, ready to record the secrets of the night. Until then, he simply sits, the master of his own small enlightened world, waiting for the stars to align. He reaches for a small leather-bound notebook, its pages yellowed and filled with columns of neat, precise numbers. He flips through the entries, his eyes scanning the data from previous nights. The ink, made from lampblack and gum arabic, remains as dark and legible as the day it was applied. Each entry is a testament to the precision of his craft. He dips a reed pen into his inkwell, the nib scratching ever so slightly against the paper, a sound that complements the earlier rubbing of the brass. He records the time and the current state of the instrument. Documentation is the backbone of his pursuit. Without the record, the observation is fleeting, a ghost in the memory. With it, the observation becomes history, a permanent mark left on the timeline of human knowledge. The act of writing feels like an anchor, holding him to the reality of his study, even as his mind wanders into the vast, cold distances of space. He sets the pen down and rubs his eyes. The lamp flame is growing shorter as the oil is consumed, casting the room into deeper, softer layers of shadow. He finds himself reflecting on the nature of the tools he uses. This astrolabe was crafted in a workshop near the Zayande River, forged by a master whose hands were as steady as his own. It is more than just metal. It is a collection of thousands of years of human thought, from the geometry of the ancient Greeks to the refinements of the Islamic Golden Age. He feels the weight of that legacy in his palms. It is a responsibility he carries with pride. He is not merely an observer, he is a custodian of light, a guardian of the celestial order. As he thinks of the future, he wonders who will sit in this chair next. In 100 or 200 years, will they marvel at the same stars? Will the astrolabe still be here, reflecting the same amber light of an oil lamp? He hopes so. He hopes that the pursuit of truth is a constant, an eternal thread that connects all human lives across the centuries. To ensure this, he takes a soft, clean brush and begins to clear away the fine dust that has settled on the crevices of the instrument, paying special attention to the delicate engraved markings of the zodiac. He works with the delicacy of a surgeon, his breath steady and slow. If you find yourself seeking the same sense of calm and wonder in your own busy life, remember that you too can create your own sanctuaries of focus. Whether it is a craft, a book, or a quiet moment of reflection, giving yourself the time to engage deeply with the world is a powerful act of restoration. If this story has helped you find a moment of peace tonight, consider subscribing or following our channel for more journeys into the quiet, historical corners of our shared past. Your support allows us to continue crafting these tales of stillness and exploration. Let the peace of this study accompany you as you transition into your own time of rest, knowing that the stars are always there, waiting to be understood, just as they were for the scholar in Isfahan. He stands up now, his joints popping softly in the quiet room. He walks to the edge of the rug and stretches his legs. The blood begins to circulate again, warmth returning to his extremities. He walks to the wall, touching the cool smooth surface of the plaster, and looks toward the ceiling. The geometric patterns seem to pulse in the low light. He feels a deep, so deep exhaustion, but it is a good productive tiredness. It is the exhaustion of a day well spent, of work completed, of a mind that has been stretched and satisfied. He walks back to the desk and looks at the astrolabe one last time. It is ready. The brush is gleaming. The lines are sharp and the mechanism is fluid. He is ready for the night. He is ready for the stars. The transition from the warmth of the desk to the cool, crisp air of the study's small balcony is a physical awakening. The scholar unlatches the heavy wooden shutters, and for a moment he is met with the vast, cool exhales of the Persian night. The air here is thin and carries the scent of the distant desert, mixed with the faint, lingering sweetness of night-blooming jasmine from the courtyard garden below. He steps out. The tiles of the balcony floor cool beneath his feet, and the familiar, breathtaking expanse of the sky opens up before him. In the year 1620, there is no light pollution to obscure the heavens. The Milky Way stretches across the zenith like a spilled river of powdered diamonds, so bright that it casts a faint, shimmering glow over the domes of the city. He breathes deep, his lungs expanding with the dry, clean air, and for a heartbeat he feels entirely weightless, as if he could float up into the void he has spent so much time mapping. He sets the astrolabe upon the stone parapet, the brass still warm from the heat of the lamp, and his own hands feels like a living thing against the cold stone. He begins the process of alignment. His movements now shifted from the gentle polishing motions of the study to the precise exacting requirements of observation. He rotates the alidé, the sighting rule, with a delicacy that defies the darkness. He looks through the small pinhole sights, searching for the star he has chosen for his transit measurement. It takes patience. He must wait for the star to reach the meridian, the highest point in its arc across the sky. He stands as still as a statue, his breathing rhythmic and shallow, his entire being concentrated on the tiny piercing point of light that dances in the distance. The silence of the city is absolute, a profound quiet that feels like a sacred shroud. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barks, a solitary sharp sound that only emphasizes the isolation of the moment. He does not flinch. He is waiting for the intersection of the star's light and the instrument's alignment, a moment of celestial transit that will tell him exactly what he needs to know about the current time and the alignment of the heavens. He thinks of the sheer impossible distance of that light, a journey that began long before he was born and will continue long after he is gone. Yet here he is, capturing that light in his brass trap, turning the infinite into a measurement of degrees and minutes. It is a profound, almost overwhelming connection, and he feels a shiver run down his spine, not from the cold, but from the raw, unadulterated awe of the encounter. As the star approaches the meridian, he adjusts the center dial of the astrolabe by a hair's breadth. His fingers, calloused and steady, know exactly how much pressure to apply. There is a soft metallic click as the parts shift into their final position. He holds his breath. The star crosses the center of the sight. He does not move, letting the moment imprint itself upon his memory before he reaches for his pencil to note the exact time. The sky seems to hold its breath with him. This is the culmination of his evening, the intersection of the physical work he performed in the warmth of his study and the cold, vast reality of the cosmos. He records the data with a steady hand, the symbols meaningful only to him and those who have walked this path before. He remains on the balcony for a while longer, not to measure but simply to witness. He looks at the constellations he knows by heart, the hunter, the scales, the archer, each one telling a story that has been told for thousands of years. In the quiet of Isfahan, under the watchful gaze of the infinite, the worries of the world, the politics of the Safavid throne, the economic shifts in the bazaars, the mundane challenges of daily survival, simply evaporate. They are rendered insignificant, mere specks of dust in the grand, sweeping narrative of the universe. He feels a sense of profound inner peace, a calm that settles deep into his core. He knows that his life is a small thing, but it is a thing of purpose. By seeking to understand the order of the stars, he is aligning his own life with the order of the universe. And in that alignment, he finds his rest. He watches a shooting star streak across the horizon, a brief fiery punctuation mark in the eternal sentence of the night, and he smiles. His work is done. The heavens are accounted for, and he can return to the warmth of his study, to the memory of the rosewater and the comfort of his scrolls, knowing that he has played his part in the grand, beautiful architecture of the night. He leaves the balcony and steps back into the study. The transition from the sharp, cold air of the rooftop to the tempered, perfumed warmth of the interior, creating a sensation of being enveloped in a soft blanket. He carefully picks up the astrolabe, its weight now familiar, almost like an extension of his own hand, and places it back upon the velvet cloth on his desk. He knows the metal will gradually lose the coolness of the night, returning to the ambient temperature of the room. He cleans the instrument one last time, a final ritualistic wipe that removes any trace of the night air, ensuring that the brass remains pristine for the next cycle of observation. This is the closing of the loop, the final act of a long and deliberate evening. He feels the weight of the last few hours settling into his muscles, a heavy, pleasant tiredness that signals it is time to transition from the active mind of the researcher to the receptive mind of the sleeper. The oil lamp is burning low, the wick swimming in the last of the oil, its light casting long, flickering shadows that reach toward the corners of the room like grasping fingers. He turns down the flame, letting the room soften into near darkness, illuminated only by the faint, diffuse glow of the moon filtering through the arched window. The geometric patterns on the walls, once crisp and distinct, now become soft, indistinct shapes, creating a dreamlike landscape that seems to exist on the border between reality and imagination. He takes a final lingering look at the stacks of parchment on his desk, the records of the night's work. They are safe, protected, and complete. He feels a quiet, profound sense of accomplishment. He has not moved mountains or swayed the fate of empires. Yet, he has done something equally significant. He has observed, he has recorded, and he has maintained the tools of understanding. He walks to the corner of the room where his sleeping mat is rolled out, covered in layers of soft, hand-woven wool blankets. He lies down the floorboards beneath the rug, providing a firm, grounding surface. As he rests his head, he can still hear the faint, rhythmic ticking of the night, the settling of the house, the sighing of the wind, the distant, muffled sound of the city in its deep repose. He closes his eyes and allows the images of the stars to drift through his mind, the bright, cold points of light, the sweeping arcs of the constellations, the silent, majestic rotation of the heavens. They are a comforting presence, a reminder that even in the deepest darkness, there is order, there is beauty, and there is a purpose to be found. He drifts into a state of light, peaceful rest, his mind moving between the reality of the study and the vastness of the space he has been observing. It is in this twilight state that the true value of his work reveals itself. It is not just about the data or the brass or the calculations. It is about the quiet, meditative stillness that comes from dedicating one's life to something greater than oneself. He breathed in the scent of the room, the lingering subtle traces of rosewater and old paper, and exhales, letting go of the remaining vestiges of the day. Sleep comes not as an interruption, but as a continuation, a closing of the day's chapter before the next, equally deliberate, begins. As he drifts off, he carries with him the knowledge that his story is one of many, Across the centuries, others have sat in similar rooms under similar lights, looking up at the same unblinking stars, seeking to understand, to preserve, and to find peace. It is a shared human journey, a legacy of wonder that transcends time and space, and in this moment of quiet reflection, he finds himself part of that grand enduring tradition. Sleepy History with Theodore is a sleep history storytelling platform created for entertainment, inspiration, education, and the promotion of positive emotional values. He settles deeper into the blankets, the silence of the room becoming his anchor, and as the last of the oil lamp's light fades to a tiny pinpoint spark, he finally finds the stillness he has been seeking. The deep, ink-black silence of the pre-dawn hours wraps around the house in Isfahan like a protective shroud. Even the stray cats in the courtyards have grown still, and the city itself feels as if it has been carved out of stone. Inside the study, the air is cool and perfectly stagnant, holding the stillness of the night as if it were a physical weight. The scholar sleeps, his breathing slow and rhythmic, matching the pacing of the universe he spent the night observing. There is no urgency in his posture, no tension in his hands, which now lie open and relaxed upon the thick wool blankets. He is in the deepest part of his rest, a state where the mind is not merely dormant, but is busy processing the vast amounts of information he gathered earlier. His dreams, if he has them, are likely composed of geometric shapes and the slow, hypnotic movement of celestial spheres, a continuation of his daytime pursuits into the subconscious realm. Within this dream state, he finds himself standing again on the rooftop, but the sky is different. The constellations are vibrant, pulsing with a light that seems to hum with a low musical vibration. He holds the brass astrolabe, but it is no longer cold metal. It is warm, almost feverish, as if it were a living conduit for the information of the cosmos. He observes the planets not as points of light, but as great golden gears turning within a grand invisible mechanism. He understands them not through mathematics or written records, but through a visceral, intuitive sense that eludes him while he is awake. He realizes that the precision he works so hard to maintain is merely his way of catching the rhythm of this celestial music. The walls of his study, the city of Isfahan, and even the earth beneath him feel thin and permeable, like a silk curtain hanging before a great and blinding theater. This vision, however, is not chaotic. It is profoundly ordered. Everything is in its place, moving with a grace that is both inevitable and beautiful. He watches as the sun begins to rise behind the distant mountains, the light not sharp or harsh, but a soft golden diffusion that slowly fills the world with warmth. He wakes slowly, the transition from the dream to reality feeling like a smooth, unbroken movement rather than a jarring shift. His eyes open, and he is met with the familiar dim gray light of early morning filtering through the high window. He feels rested, his mind clear, and his body restored. The room is quiet, the oil lamp now extinguished, and the air is bracingly cold. He stretches, his muscles feeling loose and comfortable, and he sits up on his mat, looking around at the sanctuary he calls home. He takes a moment to simply sit and exist without the burden of tasks or the necessity of output. It is a moment of pure, unadulterated presence. He watches the dust motes dancing in a singular beam of light that has just begun to penetrate the gloom of the study. Each particle is a tiny tumbling world, illuminated for a brief glorious second before it sinks back into the shadows. He thinks about how much of life is like this, a series of fleeting, illuminated moments surrounded by vast oceans of the unseen. He does not reach for his notes or his instruments. He does not feel the need to record anything yet. He is content to let the world wake up around him, to witness the transition from the stillness of the night to the inevitable activity of the coming day. He feels a quiet joy in this, a sense of deep-rooted stability that no change in the outside world can touch. He is an astronomer in 1620, a man of his time and of all time, and for this brief quiet interval, he is exactly where he needs to be. As the morning light strengthens, casting long pale fingers across the intricate tilework of the walls, the scholar finally rises from his sleeping mat. His movements are deliberate, seasoned by years of living in this small enclosed space where every object has its designated place. He rolls his bedding tightly, binding it with a cord of braided silk, and tucks it away into the recessed wall niche. The room begins to shift from a bedroom to a workspace once more. He moves to the center of the room, his bare feet silent on the thick woven carpets. The air, while still cool, feels fresh, carrying the faint, crisp promise of a new day. He approaches the desk where the brass astrolabe rests, the instrument now catching the first true rays of the sun, causing it to glimmer with a renewed morning intensity. He does not touch it immediately, but stands for a moment, observing the way the light catches the fine engraved lines. It is a work of art, a tool of science, and a witness to the night that has just passed. He fetches a small copper basin of water from the courtyard, the liquid cool and invigorating against his face and hands. The act of washing is another ritual, a cleansing not just of the skin but of the lingering remnants of his dreams. He dries his face with a rough, clean towel, feeling the sudden sharpness of his own awareness. He is ready to begin the day, but not with the rush or frantic energy of the merchants who will soon be filling the bazaars outside. His work is internal, patient, and quiet. He clears the remaining scrolls from the secondary desk, organizing them into neat, leather-bound piles, each one labeled with the date and the nature of the observations contained within. This systematic approach is his way of imposing order on the chaotic, overwhelming abundance of the universe. It is a practice that calms him, providing a structure upon which he can build his intellectual pursuits. He moves to the small charcoal-fired brazier, where he carefully arranges a few pieces of high-quality hardwood. He strikes a spark with a flint and steel, the dry wood catching quickly and releasing a thin curling ribbon of fragrant smoke that smells of earth and fire. He places his small long-handled tea kettle over the flame. As he waits for the water to boil, he pulls a low stool to the window and sits, watching the courtyard wake up. The world outside is beginning to stir. He hears the distant, rhythmic sweeping of a broom on stone, the soft musical chirping of sparrows in the eaves, and the far-off melodic sound of a call to morning prayer drifting over the rooftops of Isfahan. It is a beautiful, familiar symphony of city life, a reminder that he is part of a larger living organism, even if he prefers the solitude of his study. He contemplates the nature of his existence as a scholar. It is a lonely path, yes, but it is one that offers rewards that are not easily understood by those who define their lives by the accumulation of wealth or power. His currency is knowledge. His power is the ability to predict the movements of the stars. He thinks of the conversations he will have with his fellow astronomers when they meet in the Grand Library later in the week. They will share their data, debate the nuances of the planetary tables, and refine their understanding of the celestial machine. It is a collaborative effort, a spanning of minds across the city, yet it all starts here, in this quiet, solitary room. He feels a sense of belonging to that intellectual community, even while sitting here entirely by himself. He pours the boiling water over a handful of dried rose petals and tea leaves in his cup, the aroma filling the room with a delicate floral sweetness. He drinks slowly, letting the warmth settle into his belly, grounding him further. The day ahead will be filled with calculations, with the drafting of new charts, and with the patient refinement of his astrolabe. But for this moment there is only the tea, the light, and the quiet. Sleepy History with Theodore combines the power of AI to reimagine fictional historical tales, bringing peace, relaxation, and positive emotional values to our listeners. He sets his cup down and reaches for his notebook. The ink is ready, the pen is sharp, and the sky, though invisible now behind the bright glare of the sun, remains as steady and certain as ever. He is ready to begin. The morning sun has climbed higher, and the quality of the light inside the room has shifted from a soft, cool gray to a vibrant, warm gold that makes the brass of the astrolabe seem to hum with hidden energy. The scholar sits at his primary desk, his posture relaxed but attentive. He has spread out a large, heavy sheet of vellum, and with a fine-tipped reed pen, he begins the meticulous process of transferring his observations from the night before into a more permanent format. Each stroke of the pen is deliberate, a dance of ink and parchment that requires immense concentration. He is not just recording numbers, he is documenting the pulse of the heavens. As he works, the rhythmic scratching of the pen against the textured surface of the vellum creates a soft, hypnotic sound that seems to fill the room, acting as a background melody to the silence. He finds himself lost in the process, his mind drifting back to the moments he spent on the rooftop. He remembers the exact alignment of the stars, the way they seemed to hold their breath as he made his measurements. He can almost feel the chill of the night air on his face again, a sharp contrast to the gentle, sun-warmed stillness of his study. This ability to recall the sensory details of his work is a skill he has honed over many years. It allows him to bring the outside world, the infinite world of the cosmos, into this small enclosed space, effectively bridging the gap between the human experience and the divine geometry of the stars. He values this ability, for it makes his solitary life feel expansive and full rather than limited or confined. As he writes, he realizes that he is nearly finished with this particular series of calculations. He has spent weeks tracking the position of a specific planet, and today he will finally have enough data to complete his table. The satisfaction of this is profound, not because of the result itself, but because of the discipline it represents. To track the movement of a celestial body, to wait for the perfect conditions, to refine one's tools, and to persist through the long, quiet nights. This is the true work of a scholar. It is a commitment that transcends the immediate and the tangible, reaching towards something eternal. He pauses to let the ink dry, looking out the window at the distant blue-tiled domes of the city, and feels a surge of quiet, humble pride. If you find that the quiet dedication of our scholar inspires you to carve out your own moments of focused, meaningful work, consider how you might apply this same sense of intentionality to your daily tasks. Whether you are studying, creating, or simply navigating the complexities of your day, taking the time to fully engage with your environment and your objectives can be a deeply rewarding experience. If this journey through the history of the stars and the quiet study of Isfahan has brought you a sense of calm and inspiration, we invite you to subscribe or follow our channel for more stories of historical reflection and tranquility. Your support is the foundation upon which we can continue to bring these peaceful, imaginative tales to life. He stands up to stretch, the movement fluid and unhurried. He walks to the wall, touching the cool, intricate carvings that decorate the plaster, feeling the history embedded in the structure. He knows that he is but one in a long line of observers who have called this place home, and he feels a deep, soul-level connection to those who came before him and those who will surely come after. It is a thought that brings him comfort, a reminder that he is part of a larger, ongoing narrative of inquiry and wonder. He returns to his desk, ready to finalize his tables, his mind sharp, his spirit calm, and his commitment to the work as steady as the stars. His soul loves to observe. The day is bright, the work is meaningful, and for a scholar in Isfahan in 1620, there is nowhere else he would rather be. The afternoon sun beats down on the clay rooftops of Isfahan, but within the thick, insulated walls of the scholar's study, The temperature remains pleasantly cool. The scholar is now deeply immersed in the drafting phase of his work. He has traded his reed pen for a set of brass dividers and a straight edge, tools that are as essential to his craft as the astrolabe itself. He is constructing a star chart based on the data he recorded during his recent night of observation. His movements are studied in precision. He sets the span of the dividers with the utmost care, measuring against the scale of the parchment to ensure that every position he plots is accurate to the fraction of a degree. This is not merely an exercise in mathematics. It is the act of bringing order to the visual chaos of the night sky, creating a map that will guide not only his own future observations, but also those of his peers. As he works, he hums a low, wordless melody, a tune that has been in his family for generations. It is a simple, rhythmic melody, one that seems to match the ticking of time itself. He doesn't notice the passage of hours. The world outside the window might be bustling with the noise of the afternoon trade, the shouts of water sellers, and the occasional braying of a donkey in the alleyway. But all of this is muffled, reaching him only as a distant, inconsequential hum. His focus is entirely contained within the boundaries of the desk, the parchment, and the golden instruments that gleam under his steady gaze. He feels a deep, quiet affection for his tools, regarding them as extensions of his own intellect and will. They are the instruments of his dialogue with the heavens. He pauses to sharpen his pencil, the shavings falling onto a small tray. He keeps specifically for this purpose. The scent of cedar wood from the pencil joins the faint residual aroma of rosewater and the earthy mineral tang of the ink. It is the signature smell of his life, a fragrance that represents both industry and peace. He looks at the star chart he is creating. The lines are delicate, almost ethereal, connecting the stars into the familiar constellations he knows so well. He wonders about the people who first named these patterns, the ancient sailors and desert travelers who looked up and saw not just random lights but stories, heroes, beasts, and mythic journeys played out across the infinite black. He feels a kinship with them, a shared human need to make sense of the vastness above. As he approaches the final details of the chart, he reaches for a small vial of lapis lazuli pigment. With a tiny fine-haired brush, he adds a subtle touch of blue to the area surrounding the North Star, a mark of distinction that will help him locate it quickly during future sessions. He works with absolute steadiness, his hand barely trembling, despite the long hours of concentration. It is a moment of intense satisfaction. The chart is not just a document, it is a manifestation of his understanding. He sits back, his neck muscles protesting slightly, and takes a moment to view the work from a distance. The constellations seem to float on the page, a captured fragment of the night sky, brought down to earth through his labor. The room has grown noticeably darker as the sun begins its descent toward the western horizon. The golden hour is approaching, and with it, a change in the atmosphere of the city. He knows that soon, the call to sunset prayer will echo from the minarets of the great mosques, and the rhythms of the city will shift once more. But for now, he is content to remain in his sanctuary, letting the silence and the soft, failing light wash over him. He has done good work today. He has turned the raw data of the night into a structured visual language. He feels no need to rush, no need to seek external validation. The chart itself is the reward, a clear, articulate piece of the cosmic puzzle. He sets his brush aside, cleans his fingers with a rag, and takes a sip of his tea, which has been replaced with a fresh hot cup brought to him by a young apprentice earlier in the day. The tea is warm, the room is quiet, and the world is exactly as it should be. The golden glow of late afternoon permeates the study, painting the walls in hues of apricot and soft amber. The scholar remains in his seat, though the focus of his labor has shifted from the drafting of maps to the maintenance of the library surrounding him. He stands and moves toward the shelves that line the eastern wall, massive hand-carved cedar units that reach toward the ceiling. These shelves house the collection of his life's work, bound manuscripts, loose folios, and rolls of parchment that contain the wisdom of centuries. He begins to reorganize them, pulling each volume down, inspecting it, and placing it back with a sense of reverence. He is not just tidying, he is engaging with his own history. Each scroll is a memory, a bridge to a night of discovery or a day of revelation. He handles them with extreme care, his fingers tracing the spine of a book before gently opening it to verify the contents. He finds a manuscript he has not touched in years, a treatise on planetary motion written by a mentor from his youth. As he opens it, the smell of ancient vellum and dried ink wafts up to greet him, an olfactory time machine that transports him instantly back to his student days. He recalls the lecture hall, the eager faces of his peers, and the towering figure of the professor who first taught him how to read the secrets of the stars. He remembers the heat of the summer night, the way the stars seemed to vibrate with intensity, and the feeling of absolute burning curiosity that drove him to pursue this path. Those memories are as clear as if they happened yesterday. He smiles, a soft, wistful expression, and allows himself a moment to lean against the shelf, reading a few lines from the text. The words are just as potent as they were decades ago. They speak of the mathematical harmony of the universe, the belief that there is an underlying order to all things, a divine logic that dictates the path of every celestial body. He agrees with this sentiment more deeply now than he did then. In his youth, he saw the order. Now he feels it in his very bones. He places the manuscript back, but he leaves the shelf slightly ajar, a small marker of the connection he has just renewed. He moves on to the next set of documents, recording their locations in a small ledger-style book. The organization is a constant, quiet task, but it provides the structure he needs to keep his mind sharp and his thoughts focused. He thrives on this order, on the knowledge that everything has a place and a purpose. As he works, the sounds of the city of Isfahan shift. The daytime clamor is beginning to fade, replaced by the hushed, anticipatory silence that precedes the evening. He hears the distant call to prayer, the voice of the muezzin rising and falling, a hauntingly beautiful sound that weaves through the city like a ribbon. It is a reminder of the cycle of the day, a grounding note that pulls him back from the abstract world of his research into the present moment. He pauses at the window, watching the last of the sun's rays retreat from the courtyard garden. The shadows are long, deep, and indigo, contrasting beautifully with the warm colors of the setting sun. It is a time of transition, a moment when the day yields to the night, and he feels a sympathetic shift in his own energy. He is ready for the work to come, but he is equally content to sit in this stillness for a while longer. He returns to his desk, but instead of picking up his tools, he sits in the dimming light, simply observing the way the shadows crawl across the room. He notices how the geometry of the ceiling is subtly altered by the change in light, the mukhanas creating a complex, shifting landscape of depth and void. He finds this endlessly fascinating. He considers the nature of perception, how our minds interpret the world based on the light we receive, the way we frame our experiences, and the stories we tell ourselves to make sense of the passage of time. He realizes that his study is not just a room, it is a lens, a way of focusing his perception on the things that truly matter. It is a sanctuary where the noise of the world is stripped away, leaving only the essential, the meaningful, and the true. He is at peace here, and in the deepening dusk, he begins to prepare his mind for the night, feeling the steady rhythmic pull of the stars as they wait for his attention. The evening has fully descended upon Isfahan, cloaking the city in a mantle of profound velvety darkness. Inside the study, the scholar has lit a secondary oil lamp, creating a soft, warm glow that barely pushes back the shadows but highlights the intimate details of his sanctuary. He is now focused on the final preparation of his equipment for the night ahead. He takes a piece of soft untreated leather and begins to polish the brass astrolabe again, not with the abrasive paste he used earlier, but with a gentle buffing motion that brings out the deep, rich luster of the metal. He works slowly, his mind calm and clear. He feels a sense of anticipation building, not the restless excitement of an explorer, but the quiet controlled readiness of an artisan who knows his tools are perfectly prepared for the task at hand. The air in the room is still, the silence punctuated only by the faint rhythmic sound of the leather against the brass. He finds that this repetitive, methodical motion is the best way to clear his mind of the day's activities and transition into the state of focus required for astronomical work. He thinks about the constellations he intends to observe tonight, the alignment of the planets, the transit of certain stars, and he feels a deep abiding connection to the cosmos. He is not just looking at the sky. He is interacting with it, using his instruments to translate the light of the stars into meaningful data. This is a responsibility he takes very seriously, and he finds that the weight of it is, in fact, a source of great stability. As he works, he contemplates the broader implications of his research. He is part of a tradition that honors the pursuit of knowledge, a lineage of scholars who have sought to understand the mechanisms of the universe for centuries. He is humbled by this realization. He knows that his own contributions are small in the grand scheme of things, but he also understands that each observation, each recording, each moment of clarity is a necessary part of the larger human endeavor to comprehend the infinite. This perspective provides him with a sense of purpose that permeates his entire life, making even the smallest tasks, like polishing the brass or organizing his scrolls, feel significant and worthwhile. If you find that this exploration of the scholar's life has touched a chord within you, perhaps you are also seeking a more intentional way to engage with the world. You might consider how your own daily routines, your work, or your creative passions can be elevated through a similar practice of patience, focus, and dedication. Remember that even in our fast-paced modern world, the power to create a personal sanctuary of quiet and meaning is always within your reach. If you enjoy these moments of reflection and wish to continue exploring the lives of those who have sought truth and beauty in the stillness of history, we invite you to subscribe or follow our channel. Your engagement allows us to continue crafting these narratives, ensuring that the spirit of curiosity and wonder endures. He finally sets the leather cloth aside and holds the astrolabe up to the lamp. It is perfect. The metal gleams with a warm golden radiance, reflecting the light in a way that suggests depth and history. He checks the central pin once more, ensuring that the movement is smooth and precise. Everything is in order. He feels a quiet, confident calm settle over him. He is ready to step out onto the balcony, to leave the warmth of his study and enter the vast, cold, and beautiful reality of the night. He gathers his notebook, his ink, and his pens, placing them carefully in a tray he can carry easily. He looks around the room one last time, the books, the carpets, the warm light of the lamp, and feels a profound sense of gratitude. This study is his world, his foundation, and his home. He is ready to begin the night's work, secure in the knowledge that he is exactly where he is meant to be, doing exactly what he has spent his life preparing for. Stepping out onto the stone balcony, the scholar is greeted by the bracing sharpness of the night air. The transition from the warm enclosed sanctuary of his study to the open expanse of the rooftop is a visceral experience that never loses its intensity. Above him, the sky is a sprawling tapestry of infinite depth, the stars appearing as crisp, diamond bright points of light against the velvet black. There is no wind, and the silence is so absolute that he can hear the rhythmic beating of his own heart. He places the astrolabe upon the sturdy wooden tripod he has set up at the edge of the parapet, securing it firmly so that it catches the light of the moon. His hands move with a practiced grace, adjusting the alignment to match the exact coordinates of his previous measurements. He stands for a long time, not moving, simply allowing his eyes to adjust to the darkness. In this state of heightened sensitivity, he can see things that would be invisible to a casual observer. The faint, ethereal glow of the zodiacal light, the subtle variations in the brightness of the stars, and the way the Milky Way arches across the sky like a river of luminous dust. He feels a profound sense of scale, a realization of his own smallness in the face of the cosmic architecture. Yet this feeling of insignificance does not diminish him, rather it elevates him. By witnessing the grandeur of the heavens, he feels connected to the very fabric of existence. It is a moment of pure unadulterated awe, a feeling that has driven his work for all these years. He begins the process of observation, his movements slow and deliberate. He uses the alidade to sight a specific distant star, his thumb pressing lightly against the brass edge of the instrument. He is waiting for the precise moment of transit, the instant when the star crosses the meridian. His breathing is shallow and controlled, a habit he has cultivated to ensure that his body does not interfere with the stability of his vision. He feels the weight of the moment, the anticipation of capturing a piece of cosmic information and recording it for eternity. This is the culmination of his daily routine, the reason he spends his hours in study, and the purpose behind his dedication to his craft. As the star approaches the meridian, he finds his mind drifting, not to the stars themselves, but to the nature of the inquiry. He considers how his tools, the astrolabe, the divider, the pen, are merely extensions of human curiosity. They are the instruments through which we reach out to understand the infinite, to bring it down to the level of our own experience. He realizes that this is the essence of his work. It is a bridge between the physical and the metaphysical, between the known and the unknown. He feels a sense of deep internal harmony, as if his own mind were a reflection of the celestial order he is observing. The struggle for precision, the discipline of the recording, the patience of the observation, it all coalesces into a single unified purpose. The star reaches the meridian. He notes the exact position, his pencil moving across the paper with fluid, certain strokes. He records the time, the altitude, and the atmospheric conditions. Each piece of data a thread in the larger tapestry of his research. When he is finished, he pauses and exhales, the breath curling in the cold air, like a wisp of smoke. He has done it. The observation is captured. He remains on the balcony for a while longer, looking up at the stars and feeling the weight of the accomplishment. He is a scholar of Isfahan in 1620, and tonight he has added his own small but significant mark to the history of science. He feels a quiet, profound contentment, a sense of peace that is as vast and enduring as the sky above him. The stars continued their slow, majestic movement, indifferent to his presence, yet he feels a deep, personal kinship with them, a bond forged through years of patient, unwavering observation. The night air, crisp and biting, serves as a sharp reminder of the world beyond the study. Yet the scholar remains firmly anchored in his purpose. After the precision of the observation, he allows himself a moment of respite, leaning against the cold stone of the parapet. His fingers, slightly stiff from the chill, find comfort in the sleeve of his robe. He watches as the constellations continue their slow, grand procession across the meridian. It is a spectacle that never grows tired. To the untrained eye, the night sky might appear static, a painting of ancient light. But to him, it is a dynamic, shifting engine of cause and effect. He contemplates the mechanical nature of the universe, the way the gears of time turn in perfect synchronicity with the movement of the stars. It is this predictability that provides him with his greatest comfort. In a world of political volatility, shifting trade alliances, and the unpredictable nature of human affairs, the heavens remain an unwavering constant. He moves to the edge of the roof, looking down into the courtyard. The garden, hidden from the direct moonlight, is a sea of dark, deep shadows. Though the scent of jasmine and damp earth rises to meet him, he imagines the insects that are active in the undergrowth, the small nocturnal lives being lived out in the dark, and finds himself appreciating the symmetry of all things, from the stars above to the soil below. Everything follows an order, a rhythm, a cycle of waking and sleeping, of growth and decay. He feels a profound sense of unity with all of existence. He is not a separate observer, but a participant, a consciousness through which the universe experiences its own beauty. This thought brings a gentle, weary smile to his lips, and he turns back to his instruments with a renewed sense of focus. He picks up a small brass compass from his tray, holding it steady as he checks the orientation of his setup. Even a slight tremor in the earth or a minor shift in the tripod could introduce error into his next reading. He is meticulous to a fault, a characteristic that has defined his career and earned him the quiet respect of his peers. He knows that in the realm of astronomy, the difference between a master and a novice is not just in the intelligence of the calculations, but in the obsession with the integrity of the measurement. He cleans the feet of the tripod, ensuring there is no grit or dust to unbalance the stand, then rechecks the leveling, his spirit calm and steady. As the next star comes into view, he realizes that the atmosphere has become even clearer. The seeing, as he calls it, is excellent tonight. The air is steady and the light from the celestial bodies reaches him with minimal distortion. It is a rare and precious condition, one that he must exploit fully. He decides to stay out on the balcony for another hour, perhaps two, to collect additional data points for his tables. The fatigue that was tugging at his limbs earlier has vanished, replaced by the sharp, invigorating clarity of intellectual engagement. He finds that his mind is operating at a peak level, processing the geometry of the sky with effortless efficiency. The hours pass in a seamless flow. He records position after position, his movements now so internalized that he hardly thinks about them. He is a conduit for data, a pen in the hand of history. Occasionally, he pauses to look up at the moon, its surface a silver map of craters and plains, and feels the urge to document its features as well. He resists, knowing that he must maintain his focus on the current task. Discipline is the boundary that keeps him from wandering into the infinite distractions of the night. He is an astronomer of 1620, and his duty is to the stars he has committed to track. As the midnight hour passes and the constellations shift their position in the sky, he feels a growing sense of satisfaction. The work is substantial, the findings are clear, and the quiet of the night is the perfect companion for his labor. He feels entirely in control, a solitary sentinel at the edge of the world, keeping watch over the movements of the vast, beautiful, and silent mechanism above. The transition into the deepest part of the night is marked by a subtle shift in the sounds of the world. The distant, lingering echoes of human activity have finally ceased, leaving behind a silence so pure it feels thick to the touch. The scholar, still perched on his balcony, senses this change as a deepening of the void around him. He is now at the very center of his endeavor, having spent the last few hours accumulating a wealth of precise, reliable data. His notebook is filling with the delicate, ink-drawn symbols of his trade, each line and number a testament to the hours of patient vigil. The air has cooled further, and a light frost is beginning to form on the stone railing, but he remains undisturbed by the cold. He has wrapped himself in a thick wool cloak, the heavy fabric insulating him from the biting temperature, and his focus is entirely elsewhere, suspended in the heavens. He finds himself reflecting on the nature of the light he is currently measuring. It is ancient light, photons that left their source hundreds, perhaps thousands of years ago, traveling across the cold, empty expanse of the cosmos, only to terminate here at the tip of his instrument in the year 1620. He thinks of the sheer persistence of this light, the way it survives the void, and how it represents a constant dialogue between the past and the present. When he writes down the coordinates of a star, he is effectively acknowledging the existence of that light, confirming its journey, and giving it a place within the human understanding of the universe. It is a profound, almost sacred act, and he feels the weight of it in the steady rhythmic movement of his pen. The astrolabe itself seems to have become a living companion, its brass surfaces reflecting the moonlight in a way that suggests it, too, is watching the stars. He treats the instrument with an almost tactile tenderness, adjusting its dials and plates with the familiarity of a musician playing an instrument he has mastered. Every click of the metal, every subtle movement of the sighting rule is a part of the conversation he is having with the sky. He feels no need for words, no need for the company of other humans. This is a solitary path, yes, but it is one that offers a level of communion that is difficult to describe. In the presence of the infinite, the concerns of the self, the ego, the petty anxieties, the fleeting desires, all fall away, leaving only the pure, undistorted reality of observation. He takes a moment to stand fully upright, his spine cracking audibly in the silence. He walks the length of the balcony, his boots making a faint scraping sound on the stone. He looks out over the rooftops of Isfahan, the city a dark, featureless expanse that seems to be dreaming beneath the watchful gaze of the moon. He thinks of the people sleeping below, thousands of souls existing within their own private narratives, unaware of the vast, intricate clockwork spinning silently above their heads. He feels a strange protective affection for them, a desire to understand the mechanics of the heavens, so that he might in some small way contribute to the collective knowledge of his culture. It is a noble ambition, one that keeps him grounded and purposeful. Returning to his station, he finds that he is not yet ready to abandon his post. The clarity of the night is simply too exceptional to waste. He begins a new series of observations, this time focusing on the horizon where the celestial sphere meets the dark, jagged outline of the distant mountains. This is more difficult as the atmosphere is denser here, but he has the skill to compensate for the distortion. He works with a renewed sense of intensity, his movements now so precise and efficient that they seem almost involuntary. He is in the flow state, a place where the barrier between the subject and the object dissolves, and all that remains is the work. The hours slide by unnoticed and uncounted as he becomes one with the rhythm of the stars, a solitary figure in the heart of the night, bound to the ancient eternal work of the astronomer. The stars are beginning their slow, inevitable arc toward the western horizon, and the scholar knows the end of his observation session is approaching. He has captured the data he needed, filling his notebook with the precise, elegant script of a man who values clarity above all else. He carefully packs away his instruments, wiping the brass astrolabe with a soft, clean cloth to remove any trace of moisture from the night air. The routine is so familiar it has become a form of prayer, a methodical closing of the celestial account for the day. Each piece is nestled back into its padded wooden case, a gesture of respect for the precision engineering that allows him to touch the infinite. As he secures the buckles of the cases, he feels a lingering, deep-seated sense of accomplishment that permeates his entire body, a quiet buzz of satisfaction that is more potent than any sleep. He stands for a final time, looking up at the sky. The familiar constellations, the great sweeping arcs of the heavens, remain exactly where they should be, a reassuring constant in a world that is always in flux. He feels a momentary, bittersweet tug of attachment, an unwillingness to leave the vast, silent communion he has shared with the cosmos. He has spent these hours as a guardian of knowledge, a witness to the profound order beauty of the universe, and it is difficult to turn away and retreat back into the more mundane reality of the earth. But he understands the necessity of the cycle. One must observe and then one must rest, so that the observation can continue another night. He picks up his tray of equipment, the weight of it familiar and reassuring against his chest, and turns toward the heavy door leading back into his study. The air inside the room is still warm, the lingering heat of the day trapped by the thick plaster walls. It feels like a homecoming, a century of human effort compared to the cold, impersonal vastness of the sky. He places his tray on the desk, his movements slow and deliberate. He takes a moment to light a small stubby candle, its flame casting a soft flickering glow that feels more comforting than the light of the stars. He moves to his sleeping mat, his muscles aching with a pleasant dull fatigue. He has spent the better part of the night on his feet, his body engaged in the delicate, intense labor of astronomical measurement, and he realizes that he is finally truly tired. As he lies down, pulling the thick hand-woven blankets up to his chin, he finds his mind drifting, not toward the complex geometry he has just finished documenting, but toward the simple, enduring joy of his existence. He is a scholar in Isfahan, a man who has dedicated his life to the pursuit of truth and the quiet observation of the infinite. He does not seek fame or power, and he does not envy the lives of those who inhabit the bustling world outside his walls. His world is smaller, more focused, and ultimately more fulfilling. He thinks of the generations of scholars who have sat in this same room under these same stars, and he feels a deep soul-level kinship with them. They too saw the order behind the chaos. They too found beauty in the precision of the lines. He breathes in the air of the room, which is faint with the scent of old parchment wax and the cooling embers of his brazier. It is the smell of his life, a fragrance that has become for him the very scent of peace. He closes his eyes, allowing the darkness of the room to merge with the darkness of his dreams. He is no longer on the rooftop, but he remains connected to the sky, a steady, quiet awareness of the stars above continuing their slow, majestic dance. He drifts into a deep, untroubled slumber, the kind of rest that comes only to those who have lived a day with purpose, integrity, and a deep, abiding love for the truth. The world outside, the city of Isfahan, the empire itself, all of it fades, leaving him in the quiet, absolute serenity of his own small enlightened corner of the universe. The sunrise arrives in Isfahan not as a sudden illumination, but as a gradual unveiling, a soft infiltration of light that begins in the pale indigo of the horizon and bleeds into the deep ochre walls of the scholar's study. He wakes before the city, his internal clock finely tuned to the rising of the sun, just as it is attuned to the transit of the stars. For a few minutes, he remains motionless, listening to the world as it transitions from the heavy silence of the night to the first tentative stirrings of the morning. A single dove coos from the eaves of the central courtyard, its voice a hollow, mournful sound that anchors him back to the physical reality of his home. He breathes in the cool morning air, which still carries the sharp, clean scent of the high desert, and feels the lingering, peaceful residue of his dreams, where geometry and light had merged into a singular, wordless truth. He rises with the grace of one who has practiced the art of deliberate movement for decades. His bedding is folded with practiced, rhythmic precision, the wool fibers catching the first of the golden light. He is not a man who feels the burden of starting a new day. Rather, he sees each dawn as a fresh page in an unending ledger, an opportunity to refine, to categorize, and to understand. He walks to the small arched window and presses his palms against the cool, smooth surface of the plaster. The city of Isfahan is slowly coming into focus below him, the geometric patterns of the distant turquoise domes catching the sun. Is a breathtaking sight, a testament to the human desire to reflect the order of the cosmos in the architecture of the earth. He admires the symmetry of it all, the way the city seems to mirror the very maps he spends his nights drawing. In the corner of his study, he begins the morning ritual of preparing his space. He takes a small whisk made of soft gold hair bristles and begins to clear the fine powdery dust that inevitably settles upon his work surfaces and instrument cases. It is a meditative, repetitive task that serves to focus his mind for the hours of study that lie ahead. He does not mind the clutter of his profession. In fact, he finds a strange comfort in the arrangement of his life. The piles of vellum, the open inkwells, the brass tools catching the light. They represent a life lived in service to inquiry. He pauses to open a fresh bottle of ink, the scent of lampblack and gallnuts, sharp and familiar. He is preparing to synthesize the data he gathered last night, to transform those rough notes into clean, definitive entries that will eventually be compiled into a grander, more comprehensive table of planetary motions. He considers the responsibility of his work. Every measurement he takes is a brick in the wall of knowledge that his culture is building. There is no room for carelessness here. To err is to distort the truth, to pass on a flawed foundation to the next generation of scholars. He takes this responsibility with a gravity that borders on the religious, though he would shy away from such a term. For him, the work is simply the truth of his life. He sits at his desk, the wooden chair creaking softly under his weight, and feels the familiar welcoming embrace of the task. The world outside will soon be full of commerce, of social obligations, and of the noise of human affairs, but for now he is in the eye of the storm, the quiet, steady center where only the relationship between the observer and the observed exists. He dips his reed pen into the ink and begins to write, his movements fluid and unhurried. He recalls the time, the date, and the specific coordinates he charted under the stars, his handwriting elegant and precise. He feels a surge of quiet joy as the numbers align, confirming the theories he has been developing over these past months. There is no rush to publish or to proclaim. The discovery is enough. It is a private celebration, a conversation between him and the mechanics of the universe. He works until the morning sun fully illuminates the room, and the distant sounds of the city grow louder, signaling the end of his early morning clarity. He is ready for the world, but he remains, at his core, a man of the study, a silent watcher who finds his greatest purpose in the quiet, methodical study of the infinite. The midday sun casts the courtyard of the study into sharp, high-contrast geometry. The scholar has set aside his primary research to attend to the maintenance of his brass instruments, a task that requires both patience and a steady hand. He is currently working on an old astrolabe that has been in his family for 3 generations. It is a beautiful piece, the metal etched with calligraphic inscriptions of the zodiac signs and the names of the major stars. But over the years, the delicate connections of the rete have become slightly stiff. He uses a fine oil distilled from crushed olives and filtered through layers of silk to lubricate the pivot points. He works with the delicacy of a clockmaker, ensuring that not a single drop touches the engraved surface of the plate. The movement of the gears is a testament to the skill of the craftsman who made it, and the scholar feels a profound sense of continuity as he restores the instrument to its former fluidity. He thinks of his father and his father's father, who also held this instrument in their hands, tracking the same stars, recording the same movements of the heavens. It is a physical link to his heritage, a way of anchoring himself in the long history of his family and his tradition. He does not view himself as an innovator, but rather as a guardian, a link in an unbroken chain of inquiry that stretches far back into the past. He believes that knowledge is not something to be conquered, but something to be stewarded, protected, and passed on. This sense of lineage gives his work a weight and a significance that goes beyond his individual life. He is not just working for himself, he is working for all those who came before him, and for all those who will eventually take his place in this study. The air in the room is warm, but the scholar is so focused that he hardly notices the heat. He finds a small speck of dust trapped in the corner of the plate and carefully extracts it with the tip of a fine needle. The act is almost surgically precise. He values this level of detail. It is in the small, seemingly insignificant tasks that the character of a person is truly revealed. He knows that his colleagues might think he is overly meticulous, perhaps even obsessive, but he doesn't care. To him, the integrity of his tools is the integrity of his truth. If his instrument is not perfect, his observations will be flawed. If his observations are flawed, his understanding of the universe will be clouded. There is no room for compromise in his craft. He leans back, the chair groaning slightly, and holds the restored astrolabe up to the light of the window. He rotates the rete and it moves with a silent, effortless grace, the metal sliding over metal with a satisfying smoothness. A smile spreads across his face, a rare, genuine expression of accomplishment. He has brought a piece of his family's history back to life, ensuring that it remains a functional, viable tool for the future. He places it on a velvet-lined shelf alongside his other instruments and feels a surge of quiet, deep-seated satisfaction. The day is well spent. He has honored the past while preparing for the future, a balance that he constantly strives to maintain. He fetches a cup of tea, the liquid now a rich deep amber, and steps out onto the balcony for a moment to watch the city. Isfahan is in the midst of its peak activity, the bazaars packed with people, the sound of their interactions drifting up to him as a vibrant kaleidoscopic hum. He observes the flow of people with a detached, serene interest. They are living their lives in the pulse of the day, a world that is fundamentally different from the world he inhabits in his study. He doesn't feel disconnected from them. Rather, he feels like a witness, a silent observer of the human drama, much like he is a witness to the drama of the stars. He drinks his tea, the warmth grounding him, and feels a deep, enduring peace. He is a scholar in Isfahan, and for all the complexity and chaos of the world below, he knows where he belongs, and he knows that his work is in its own quiet way as essential as the life of the city itself. The shadows in the study have lengthened considerably, signaling that the afternoon is drawing to a close. The scholar has been busy transcribing his latest observations into a formal journal, a task that demands both endurance and an eye for minute detail. The vellum is thick and high quality, made from the hides of local livestock and cured until it is smooth enough to accept the finest ink. He works in silence, the only sound being the soft rhythmic scratching of his reed pen. His environment is a controlled masterpiece of organization. Every scroll, every inkpot, and every brass instrument is positioned exactly where his hand expects to find it. He is a man who understands that in the pursuit of the absolute, the environment in which one works must be as orderly as the theories one explores. He pauses only to trim his pen, his movements practiced and economical. The light in the room is soft, filtered through the thick amber-hued glass of the windows, which creates an atmosphere of timelessness. He finds himself reflecting on the nature of the stars he has been documenting. To the ordinary observer, they are mere points of light, distant and unreachable. To him, they are dynamic, energetic entities that dictate the cycles of life on Earth. He feels a profound responsibility to get the coordinates correct. If his calculations are precise, he is effectively mapping the heartbeat of the cosmos. This awareness is not a burden, but a privilege. It is the core of his existence, the reason he rises with the sun and watches the horizon long after the moon has set. As he reaches the bottom of the page, he adds a final, carefully drawn symbol that denotes the atmospheric conditions of the night. It is a detail often overlooked by lesser observers, but he knows that even the slightest humidity or dust can refract the light, causing a discrepancy in the measurement. His dedication to these nuances is what sets his work apart. He feels a sense of quiet triumph as he blots the ink and allows it to dry. The entries are clean, the math is sound, and the document is ready to be filed in the library of the great madrasa of Isfahan. He is not just keeping notes for himself, he is contributing to the collective wisdom of his people, a task he approaches with humility and unwavering focus. If you have found yourself drifting into this quiet study alongside our astronomer, perhaps you are feeling a pull toward your own form of inner stillness. We all inhabit worlds that demand our constant attention and energy, but we also possess the agency to carve out these sanctuaries of concentration and reflection. If this narrative of dedication and historical precision has resonated with you, and you wish to support the continuation of these tales, please consider subscribing or following our channel. Your presence in this space helps us keep the stories of our shared human history alive, fostering a community that values deep, calm, and contemplative exploration of the past. Together, we can keep the lights of wisdom burning through the quiet hours of the night. He cleans his pen, dipping it into a small jar of clean water, then wiping the nib on a soft lint-free cloth. He leans back and stretches, his joints feeling loose and fluid. The air in the study has cooled again, a sign that evening is once more approaching. He contemplates the work that remains for the coming night, more observations of the southern constellations, which will require him to adjust his tripod to a new position on the balcony. He is not worried about the effort, he is invigorated by it. The pursuit of truth, he has learned, is a reward in itself, a process that feeds the soul as much as it informs the mind. He turns his attention to the window, watching as the first stars begin to puncture the twilight, a signal that his true work is about to begin again. The dusk has finally surrendered to the deep, resonant indigo of a desert night, and the scholar feels the familiar pull of the balcony calling to him. The transition from his desk to the outside world is a deliberate, measured process. He ensures his heavy woolen cloak is wrapped securely around his shoulders, the fabric a dense barrier against the encroaching chill that will inevitably settle as the hours progress. He carries his instrument tray with a focused tenderness, his hands moving with the confidence of someone who has navigated this path in absolute darkness 1,000 times before. The stones of the balcony floor are cold beneath his boots, a tactile reminder of the vast shifting temperatures of the plateau, but he doesn't linger on the sensation. His gaze is already fixed on the heavens, where the stars have begun their brilliant piercing display. He sets his astrolabe down with a quiet, solid thud, and for a long moment he simply stands, allowing the overwhelming scale of the universe to wash over him. In the stillness, he can hear the faint distant whistle of the wind as it moves across the mountain passes, a sound that feels like the very breath of the earth. He begins the alignment of his equipment, his fingers working with a precision that defies the low light. He doesn't need a candle. His tactile memory of the device is absolute. Each screw, each dial, each etched graduation finding its place under his touch. The stars are his guide, their steady, unblinking presence providing the fixed points from which he builds his understanding of the world. As he prepares the first observation, he finds his thoughts drifting to the concept of time, not the linear human-defined time of the city, but the cyclic, eternal time of the celestial spheres. In this moment, the year 1620 feels both distant and immediate, a single point on a grander, more incomprehensible scale. He considers the generations of his kin who have stood in this exact spot, under this same sky, driven by the same hunger to observe and to record. This realization creates a profound sense of continuity that anchors him against the potential insignificance of his own fleeting life. He is not just an individual, he is a witness, a link in a chain of knowledge that stretches backward to the dawn of human awareness. He sights the first star, his breath held in a controlled, steady rhythm. The star is bright, steady, and perfectly placed for the night's work. He records its position, the sound of his pen scratching against the paper, a small defiant mark of human intent against the overwhelming silence of the universe. Each data point is a piece of the puzzle he is dedicated to assembling, the map of the heavens that helps navigators, timekeepers, and thinkers find their way. He works with a quiet, focused intensity, his mind operating in a state of high clarity. The distractions of the day, the correspondence, the maintenance, the mundane chores have all dissolved, leaving only the pure, undistorted exchange between his intellect and the cosmos. As the night deepens, he finds his rhythm accelerating. He moves between the tripod and his notebook, his movements as fluid and efficient as the orbital patterns he is tracking. There is a profound meditative beauty in this labor, a sense of rightness that fills him with a quiet, enduring joy. He is doing exactly what he was meant to do, in the exact place he was meant to be. He looks up once more, his eyes tracking the slow, majestic, and entirely indifferent movement of the constellations, and he feels a surge of profound gratitude. He is alive, he is aware, and he is part of the unfolding story of the universe. As he reaches for his pen to record yet another coordinate, he feels the weight of the night lifting from his mind, replaced by the crisp, invigorating presence of the stars themselves, guiding him through the hours until the dawn. The zenith of the night brings a clarity of atmosphere that is as rare as it is exquisite. The scholar remains on the balcony, his focus absolute, as the constellations rotate in a slow, stately dance that he has mapped in his mind's eye 1,000 times. He has become a part of the architecture, a silent, unmoving statue against the backdrop of the swirling heavens. The code is a living thing, seeping through the gaps in his cloak, but he is oblivious to the physical discomfort. His consciousness is entirely projected upward, weaving into the patterns of light that define the night. He is currently tracking a wandering planet, a beacon of steady, unblinking light that defies the scattered nature of the surrounding stars. This is the challenge he craves, to capture the subtle, imperceptible shift in its position, to pin it down with the rigid, unforgiving precision of his brass instruments. Every movement he makes is calculated, a symphony of economy and grace. He adjusts the alidari, his fingers tracing the cold metal of the scale, feeling the slight resistance of the pivot. When he sights the target, he does not hurry. He waits for the atmosphere to settle, for the tiny shimmering distortion caused by thermal currents to die down, so that he can catch the point of light in its most stable moment. It is a game of patience, a trial of nerves that he passes with ease. When the measurement is perfect, he steps back to the small table and records the value, his script elegant and unwavering. He feels the weight of the data. Each entry is a piece of a larger truth, a confirmation of the order he has spent his life believing in. He is not merely an astronomer. He is an explorer of the laws that govern the mechanics of the existence. As the moon begins to decline, the shadows on the rooftop shift, creating new complex landscapes of depth and void. He finds himself drawn to the beauty of these shadows. He considers how they too are a form of light, the presence of an absence, and how they, like the stars, are governed by the laws of geometry. He wonders if the architecture of the soul follows the same principles, whether our joys and our sorrows are merely the necessary shadows that define the shape of our lives. It is a thought that brings him a strange melancholy comfort. He is not alone in his pursuit of understanding. He is part of a grand unfolding inquiry that defines the human experience. The struggle for precision is not just about the data. It is about the attempt to bring clarity to the inherently mysterious nature of our reality. He pauses, leaning against the cold stone of the parapet to take a sip of water from a small earthenware vessel. The liquid is startlingly cold, a sharp, refreshing jolt that grounds him in the physical sensation of the present. He looks down at the city, which remains silent and dark, save for the occasional fleeting light of a late night candle in a distant room. He feels a sense of quiet, almost paternal guardianship over the sleeping populace. They live their lives beneath the watch of the stars, and he is the one who monitors their movements, the one who understands the mechanics of the time they live in. It is a humble, quiet responsibility, one that grants him a perspective that few others possess. He is content with this. He does not need the recognition of the world, for the work itself is sufficient reward. The final hours of the night are the most demanding. The fatigue that he had successfully held at bay begins to manifest as a heaviness in his eyelids, but he pushes it away, relying on the discipline of his training. He focuses on the final set of calculations, his mind operating with the sharp, clinical efficiency of a machine. He is in the flow, a state of being where the self is transcended and only the observation remains. The stars continue their arc, indifferent to his efforts. Yet he feels the connection growing stronger with every passing minute. He is not just looking at the sky, he is interacting with it, a dialogue of light and logic that persists even in the silence of the deepest night. As the first faint hint of gray begins to bleed into the eastern horizon, he knows he has succeeded. He has captured the information he needed, and he has done so with the integrity and care that his tradition demands. He is ready to retreat, to rest, and to return to the quiet, unfolding truth of his studies. The dawn in Isfahan is not merely a change in light, it is a profound alteration in the texture of existence. As the last remnants of the night retreat, the scholar remains on the balcony, his body a silent monument to the hours of vigil. He feels the cool, damp air pressing against his skin, a sharp contrast to the internal warmth of his long, sustained focus. He gathers his equipment, each movement practiced and deliberate, folding the tripod legs and tucking the brass instruments into their velvet-lined containers. The weight of the equipment is familiar, a comforting burden that signifies a job completed with the utmost care. He turns away from the sky, which is now fading from deep indigo to a soft ethereal violet, and enters the sanctuary of his study. The room is quiet, the air still holding the faint dry scent of the parchment and ink, a fragrance that has become the signature of his life. He sets his tray upon the desk and begins the final phase of his night's labor, the transcription of the raw data into the ledger. This is the moment of synthesis where the disconnected points of light he observed are woven into the coherent tapestry of his research. He dips his reed pen into the ink, his hand steady and precise. He writes with a calm, methodical rhythm, his thoughts clear and unclouded. He finds a sense of profound order in these entries. They are the concrete evidence of his commitment to the truth. He knows that these pages will endure long after his own life has faded, becoming part of the intellectual bedrock that future generations will build upon. This realization provides him with a quiet, enduring satisfaction, a sense of purpose that permeates his entire being. As he finishes the last entry, he sits back in his chair, the wood creaking softly in the stillness. He feels the fatigue beginning to weigh on his limbs, a natural consequence of the hours of intense, focused observation. He does not fight this tiredness. He welcomes it as a well-earned reward. He has done what he was meant to do, and he has done it with the integrity and patience that his tradition demands. He reaches for a small bowl of fruit and water. The taste of the fresh, cool morsels, a gentle reminder of the physical world he inhabits. He is a scholar in Isfahan, a man who has chosen the path of the observer, and he finds no reason to regret his choice. He is part of a larger, ongoing dialogue with the cosmos, a journey of discovery that is both solitary and profoundly, deeply shared with all who have ever looked up at the stars and asked why. He moves to the window, watching as the first true rays of the sun begin to illuminate the city below. The domes of the mosques, clad in their intricate turquoise tiles, start to glow with a vibrant inner fire, reflecting the light in a way that suggests a connection between the earthly and the divine. He admires this architecture, seeing in its geometry a mirror to the celestial patterns he has just finished documenting. He realizes that the human desire to build, to structure, and to understand is merely another manifestation of the same force that drives the movement of the planets and the rotation of the stars. We are all, in our own way, trying to map the infinite, trying to make sense of the vast, beautiful, and sometimes overwhelming reality we find ourselves in. He prepares his sleeping mat, the wool heavy and comforting, and wraps himself in the soft textured fabric of his robes. He is ready to surrender to the quiet, restorative power of sleep, knowing that when he wakes, the rhythm of his life will continue in its steady, purposeful cycle. He closes his eyes, feeling the stillness of the room wrapping around him like a gentle, protective cloak. He is at peace, his mind a calm, uncluttered landscape, his heart full of the silent, enduring wonder of the cosmos. He does not fear the future, nor does he regret the past. He lives in the present, a man of study, a man of the stars, a man whose life is defined by the simple, unwavering pursuit of truth. The world outside will wake to its own demands and its own noise. But for now, he is alone with his thoughts, the quiet and the profound, beautiful order of his existence, drifting into a rest that is as deep and as vast as the sky he has spent his life observing. The waking hour arrives with the soft, persistent sound of the city awakening beyond the thick, protective walls of the scholar's sanctuary. From the distance, the muffled resonance of the morning call to prayer drifts into the room, a rhythmic and hauntingly beautiful reminder that the world remains in motion even as he lingers in the final moments of his deep, restorative sleep. He stirs slowly, the transition from the dream state to consciousness as fluid and unhurried as the celestial bodies he studies. He does not bolt upright. Instead, he stretches his limbs, feeling the lingering fatigue of the previous night's vigil slowly dissolving into a calm, steady alertness. He sits up, the heavy hand-woven blankets falling away, and takes a long, slow breath of the morning air, which still bears the crispness of the high desert dawn. It is a moment of profound, quiet gratitude to have rested, to have been renewed, and to have a purpose that beckons him as soon as he opens his eyes. He moves to the center of the room, his bare feet meeting the cool patterned tiles of the floor. His ritual begins with the simplicity of tradition, a small basin of water, the refreshing splash against his face, and the deliberate act of adjusting his robes. He is a man who finds beauty in the repetitive, in the small, consistent acts that form the foundation of a disciplined life. He walks toward his primary desk, where the star charts and the data he compiled the night before are waiting. Even in the daylight, these papers possess a gravitas that commands his attention. They are not merely records, they are the distillation of a nocturnal dialogue with the infinite. He touches the ink-hardened surface of the vellum with a soft, reverent hand, checking the clarity of his own script. The numbers are clean, the equations balanced, and the logic remains as sharp as the stars that inform it. His day, however, is not confined to the desk. He must attend to the practical demands of his position, which includes the care of the instruments that make his observations possible. He moves to the shelf where the astrolabe, the quadrants, and the various sighting tools are kept. Each is polished to a mirror-like luster, a testament to his belief that a scholar's tools are an extension of his own moral and intellectual integrity. He takes up a fine soft cloth and a dab of polishing oil, moving with a rhythm that has been ingrained in him through years of practice. He does not view this as maintenance. He views it as a form of meditation. As he buffs the brass, the light from the window catches the metal, reflecting small dancing suns across the walls of the room. It is a subtle, beautiful game of light and geometry that reminds him of the very nature of his work. The mid-morning finds him seated by the window, where the sun is now fully present, warming the room and illuminating the intricate hand-carved details of the woodwork. He begins his correspondence, a task that connects him to the broader intellectual community of his time. He writes letters to fellow thinkers in distant cities, Baghdad, Samarkand, Cairo, discussing the nuances of planetary motion, the latest findings regarding the lunar cycles, and the philosophical implications of the cosmic order. His writing is elegant and formal, a reflection of a mind that values clarity and precision above all else. He enjoys this connection with his peers, for although his physical life is solitary, his intellectual life is expansive and deeply rooted in a shared human endeavor. He is a part of a conversation that has spanned centuries, and he feels the weight and the dignity of that lineage with every word he pens. As the sun climbs higher, the city outside reaches the peak of its daily energy, yet the scholar remains in his oasis of quiet. He is content to let the noise of the world pass him by, for he has found the one thing that truly matters, a life of meaningful, steady engagement with the truth. He spends the hours of the midday in deep reading, poring over ancient manuscripts that contain the wisdom of his predecessors. He finds that even after all these years, there is still so much to learn, so many layers to uncover. The pursuit of knowledge is not a destination, but a journey, a path that winds through the stars and settles deep within the quiet, steady rhythm of his own beating heart. As the shadows begin to shift and the day moves toward its inevitable conclusion, he feels a sense of deep, abiding peace, knowing that he is exactly where he is meant to be, doing exactly what he has spent his life preparing for. The transition from the intense, sunlight-drenched studies of the afternoon into the softened, golden hour of the late day marks a shift in the scholar's rhythm. He steps away from his desk, his legs slightly stiff, and walks to the courtyard garden that serves as his only true connection to the earth beneath his feet. The garden is a miniature world of order and beauty, characterized by the symmetrical placement of pomegranate trees and a central basin of cool still water. He finds that this space is as essential to his sanity as the star charts are to his work. It is where he observes the terrestrial rhythms that mirror the celestial ones. He spends a few moments pruning a stray branch from a rose bush, the rhythmic snap of the shears providing a satisfying tactile end to his academic tasks. The scent of damp earth and blooming jasmine is a powerful grounding force, pulling him back from the abstract, mathematical heights of the heavens and rooting him firmly in the physical reality of the present moment. He sits by the water's edge, watching the way the surface reflects the changing colors of the sky. In the reflection, he sees the same shifting hues he observes on his maps, the deep bruising purples and the searing, vibrant oranges of the twilight. He contemplates the concept of symmetry, the ancient enduring idea that the macrocosm of the stars and the microcosm of the garden are governed by the same divine, mathematical logic. This is the truth he has spent his life chasing, and in these quiet, late afternoon moments, he feels it most intensely. It is not something that can be captured in a formula or a measurement. It is something that must be experienced, felt in the stillness of the lungs and the steady, unhurried beating of the heart. He is a man who has learned that the search for truth is, at its core, a search for this moment of total, profound alignment. As the call to evening prayer echoes across the rooftops of Isfahan, he stands and turns back toward his study. The city is beginning to exhale, the frantic pace of the day settling into a more contemplative, nocturnal mode. He enters his room, which feels like a well-worn, comfortable garment, and lights the lamps, The flame catches, casting long, dramatic shadows against the shelves of books and the array of brass instruments. This is his stage, his theater of inquiry. He gathers his equipment for the night, checking the tripod stability and the tightness of the screws on his astrolabe. He is not driven by ambition, nor is he seeking recognition. He is driven by a deep, fundamental need to witness the unfolding of the cosmic order. It's a quiet, noble, and deeply personal vocation, one that he embraces with a sense of calm, absolute certainty. He takes a moment to review his journal from the previous night, reading over his own notations with a critical, appreciative eye. The handwriting is firm, the observations accurate, and the conclusions sound. He adds a few marginal notes, refining the interpretation of a planetary alignment, and finds that his understanding has deepened even in the few hours since he last worked on these pages. This is the beauty of the intellectual life. It is a continuous, iterative process where every observation informs the next and every insight leads to further questions. He finds himself looking forward to the coming night with a quiet, persistent excitement. The air is cool, the sky is clear, and the conditions are perfect for the work he has prepared. He feels the weight of the day dropping away, replaced by the sharp, invigorating promise of the night. He sits at his desk, but instead of starting immediately, he pauses for a long, silent moment of reflection. He thinks of the vastness of the space above him, the millions of points of light that have been burning since before the foundations of his city were laid. He is a tiny, fleeting existence, a flicker of awareness in a vast darkness. Yet through his instruments and his intellect, he can reach out and touch the infinite. It is a humbling yet empowering realization. He is the bridge between the earth and the heavens, a sentinel of the night, a guardian of the ancient knowledge. He stands and moves toward the balcony, the door opening to reveal the vast glittering expanse of the cosmos. He is ready to begin. The night has fully claimed the sky, and the scholar finds himself in a state of suspended animation, his entire existence distilled into the act of observing the celestial sphere. The air on the balcony is bitingly cold, yet he is warmed by an internal intellectual fire that burns with a steady, enduring intensity. He has positioned his astrolabe with a level of precision that approaches the divine, his hands moving with an almost unconscious grace as he aligns the instrument to the meridian. Above him, the stars are brilliant, piercing needles of light that seem to vibrate with the sheer power of their distance. He is not merely looking at them, he is in a silent conversation with the mechanics of the universe, a dialogue that has defined every moment of his adult life. The silence of the night is so profound that he can hear the faint, rhythmic ticking of his own water clock inside the room, a heartbeat that marks the passing of seconds in the vast, timeless theater of the cosmos. He turns his attention to the moon, which is currently in its waxing phase, a sliver of luminous silver against the velvet darkness. He has been tasked with tracking the specific shadows cast within its craters, a project that requires him to maintain a position for hours at a time. He does not mind the rigor of the task is its own reward. He notes the way the light catches the uneven rugged landscape of the lunar surface, and he records his observations with meticulous care. Every stroke of his pen on the vellum is an act of devotion, a way of anchoring the transient beauty of the night into a permanent readable record. He finds that his mind, usually so active and analytical, settles into a state of pure wordless observation. It is a form of meditation where the observer and the observed merge, leaving only the reality of the inquiry. As the hours scroll forward, he becomes aware of the changing atmosphere. The air has become exceptionally stable, a condition he refers to as perfect seeing, where the usual atmospheric tremors that distort starlight are virtually absent. This is a gift, a rare opportunity to capture the most minute details of the celestial movements. He takes full advantage of it, his movements becoming more fluid, his focus narrowing, until he is aware of nothing but the alignment of the stars and the movement of the dials under his fingertips. He feels a sense of profound, almost overwhelming connection to the cosmos. He is not just a scholar in a room in Isfahan. He is a part of the vast, intricate clockwork of the universe. The realization is humbling and empowering all at once. It is a testament to the human capacity for wonder, a living, breathing testament to the idea that, even in a fleeting temporary life, one can touch the infinite. He pauses to look away from the eyepiece, allowing his eyes to rest, and he finds himself staring out over the sleeping city. The rooftops are lost in shadow, save for the occasional flickering glow of a lamp where some other soul might be awake, a baker preparing for the dawn perhaps, or a traveler unable to sleep. He feels a quiet kinship with these distant unknown people. We are all living our lives under the same canopy, all moving toward the same horizon. The thought brings him a sense of peace that is as vast and enduring as the heavens above. He is doing his part to understand the world, to contribute his own small measure of clarity to the collective human knowledge. It is a quiet, noble, and deeply fulfilling life. And as he turns back to his instruments, he knows that he would not trade it for anything. The night wears on, the constellations shifting their positions, the stars wheeling across the sky in their eternal majestic dance. The scholar continues his work, his entries becoming more detailed, his understanding growing more nuanced with every passing hour. He is a man who has learned the value of the long, quiet, and patient observation. He understands that the truth is not something to be seized in a sudden burst of insight, but rather something to be gathered slowly, bit by bit, over the course of a lifetime. He feels a surge of quiet, persistent joy in this realization. He is exactly where he is meant to be, doing exactly what he has spent his life preparing for. As the first faint grayish light of the coming dawn begins to touch the horizon, he feels a sense of completion, a deep, abiding contentment that is as calm and as steady as the light of the stars he has spent the night documenting. He is ready for the day, for the rest, and for the cycle to begin all over again. The transition into the final phase of the night is a slow, almost glacial movement of shadow and light, a process that the scholar observes with the practiced patience of an old friend. He remains on the balcony, his limbs stiffening under the persistent chill, yet his mind remains as clear and sharp as the mountain air surrounding the city of Isfahan. He has spent the last several hours documenting the subtle, nearly imperceptible transit of a distant faint star across the meridian, a task requiring the utmost steadiness of both hand and heart. He knows that his records will one day be studied by others, and he feels the weight of that legacy, a quiet pressure to ensure that every calculation is as precise as it can possibly be. He does not see this as a burden. Rather, it is a testament to the importance of his craft. To observe accurately is to participate in the truth of the universe, and he is a willing, devoted participant in this eternal grand design. He leans in close to the astrolabe, the cool brass pressing against his cheek. He is checking the alignment, one last time, before the star passes beyond the reach of his instrument's aperture. The silence of the night is absolute, a vacuum that amplifies every subtle sound. The soft scratch of his pen against the vellum, the distant muffled bark of a stray dog in the city below, the rhythmic steady beating of his own heart. These sounds are the pulse of his reality, the backdrop to his intellectual labor. He is deeply aware of the privilege of his solitude, of the rare quiet space he has carved out for himself in a world that is otherwise chaotic and demanding. He has learned that one must be intentional about creating these sanctuaries of thought, for it is within them that the most important work of human existence, the act of understanding, takes place. As he finishes the entry for the night, the sky begins to shift. The deep velvet blackness of the zenith starts to pale into the soft, ethereal indigo of the pre-dawn. He watches the transformation with a sense of wonder that has never faded, despite the decades he has spent performing this exact ritual. Each dawn is a new beginning, a fresh opportunity to refine his measurements, to learn from the errors of the past, and to contribute to the growing collective understanding of the cosmic order. He feels a profound sense of continuity, a connection not just to the stars, but to the generations of scholars who have stood in this same spot under this same sky, driven by the same singular desire to comprehend the mystery of the infinite. He is not alone in this. He is part of an unbroken chain of inquiry that stretches back into the dim, distant past and will continue well into the future. He begins to dismantle his station, his movements slow, deliberate, and deeply respectful of the tools that have served him so well throughout the night. He wipes the astrolabe with a clean, soft cloth, removing the condensation that has formed on its surface, and tucks it back into its padded case. He bundles his notes, tying them with a thin strip of twine, and places them on a tray alongside his pens and inkwells. This ritual of closing is as important as the act of observing, for it ensures that everything is in its proper place, ready to be retrieved for the next session. He is a man who values the dignity of order, recognizing that the way one treats one's tools is a reflection of the way one treats the knowledge they help to reveal. He feels a sense of quiet, enduring peace as he carries the tray back into his study, the weight of it a welcome grounding presence against his chest. The study is quiet, the air inside still holding the warmth of the previous day, a welcoming contrast to the cold, open vastness of the rooftop. He sets his things down on his desk, but he does not immediately turn to his sleeping mat. Instead, he moves to the window and stands for a moment, looking out at the city of Isfahan. As it begins to stir, the first golden rays of the sun are just beginning to touch the highest domes of the mosques, turning them into glowing radiant beacons of faith and geometry. He admires the sight, seeing in it a physical manifestation of the same order he has been studying in the stars. He realizes that his work is not merely about the mechanics of the heavens, it is about the inherent fundamental beauty that exists in all things, provided one is patient enough, disciplined enough, and quiet enough to see it. He walks toward his sleeping area, feeling the fatigue of the night settling into his muscles like a heavy, comforting cloak. He is at peace with his work, with his life, and with the vast unfolding mystery of the universe. He lies down, closing his eyes, and drifts into a deep, dreamless sleep, the rhythm of his breathing slowly aligning with the quiet, persistent heartbeat of the world as it awakens. The morning in Isfahan unfolds with a gradual golden intensity, the light creeping across the scholar's desk like a slow-moving tide. He wakes naturally, his internal clock having long ago synchronized with the solar cycle, and he sits in the quiet for a long moment, simply observing the motes of dust dancing in the shafts of sun. This is the time when the mind is most pliable, before the responsibilities of the day have begun to exert their pressure. He considers the progress of his current project, a detailed mapping of the ecliptic, a labor that has already consumed several months of his life and will likely consume several more. The work is daunting in its scale, but he finds that he is not intimidated. He is a man of incremental gains, someone who understands that the most profound truths are rarely found in sudden revelations, but are instead discovered through the steady, patient accumulation of evidence. He rises and moves through the familiar motions of his morning routine, the tactile nature of which provides a grounding stability. He grinds the pigments for his ink, the rhythmic friction of the mortar and pestle serving as a form of meditation. He is preparing a new set of scrolls, carefully selecting the vellum for its grain and consistency. Each sheet is a potential vessel for discovery, a place where the theoretical can become the documented. He takes pride in the quality of his materials, believing that the pursuit of truth deserves nothing less than the finest tools. As he works, his thoughts drift back to the previous night's observations, the specific nagging discrepancy in the motion of a particular wandering star that he has yet to fully reconcile with his existing charts. The problem is a knot in the fabric of his understanding, one that he is eager to untangle, yet he knows that the solution cannot be forced. He steps out into the courtyard, the air now warm and filled with the scent of blooming jasmine and the faint sweet decay of fallen fruit. He finds a small stone bench near the central fountain and sits, closing his eyes to listen to the sounds of the city. Beyond the high plastered walls, he can hear the distant vibrant hum of the bazaar, the rhythmic clatter of metalworkers, and the occasional sharp call of a merchant. It is a world of noise and commerce, of human struggle and triumph, a world that seems fundamentally disconnected from the quiet, stellar stillness of his study. And yet he knows that this too is a part of the order he seeks to understand. The chaotic energy of the human world is just another layer of the same cosmic dance, another expression of the fundamental underlying principle that governs all of existence. He finds that he is not troubled by the discrepancy in his data. Rather, he is intrigued. He considers the nature of error, how it is not a failure but a signpost pointing toward a more complete understanding. Perhaps his model is too simple, or perhaps there is a variable he has not yet accounted for. The thought brings a gentle, curious smile to his lips. To be wrong is simply another way of being in the process of becoming right. He stands, his muscles loose and energized, and walks back into his study. He is ready to return to the math, to examine the data from a different perspective, and to challenge his own assumptions. He is a scholar who welcomes the mystery, for it is in the mystery that the true joy of learning resides. He sits at his desk and opens the thick, leather-bound volume that contains the sum of his life's work. He begins to read, his eyes moving across the pages with a familiar, searching intensity. He is looking for the connection, the missing link in the chain of his logic. As he works, the world outside ceases to exist. There is only the movement of his pen, the logic of the numbers, and the pursuit of a deeper, more elegant truth. The hours pass, the sun moves across the sky, and the shadows in the room stretch and shift, but he remains unmoved, a solitary, focused figure at the heart of his own personal universe. He is content, for he is doing exactly what he has spent his life preparing for. He is participating in the vast unfolding and eternal conversation between the human mind and the infinite reality of the cosmos. The afternoon sun hangs heavy and gold in the sky, casting the study into a state of warm, dusty tranquility. The scholar, having spent hours locked in the rigorous embrace of his calculations, finds himself leaning back against the cool plaster wall, his mind finally drifting into a state of quiet reflection. He has been analyzing the variance in his recent observations of the ecliptic, and while the mystery remains, he feels a strange, serene confidence that he is inching closer to the truth. The nature of his work is such that he must live with uncertainty for long periods. It is the price of admission for seeking truths that exist beyond the reach of human intuition. He gazes at the rows of leather-bound manuscripts lining his walls, their spines cracked and faded, each one containing the concentrated, hard-won wisdom of those who walked this path before him. He feels a deep, soul-level camaraderie with these long-dead thinkers, imagining them in their own rooms, under their own skies, grappling with the same questions that occupy his thoughts now. He gets up and wanders to the corner of the room where he keeps his collection of astronomical charts. He unfolds a large piece of vellum that he has been drafting for weeks, spreading it out across his central table. It is a work of immense detail, a map of the heavens as seen from his particular vantage point in Isfahan. The precision of the ink lines, the delicacy of the stellar symbols, and the sheer overwhelming complexity of the geometry are a testament to his life's dedication. He traces a line with his finger, following the projected path of a planet, and pauses. Go out there at the intersection of the horizon and the meridian. He sees something he hadn't noticed before, a slight, almost imperceptible misalignment that might be the key to the discrepancy he has been struggling with. The discovery is not a dramatic shout, but a soft internal click of realization, a moment of clarity that feels like a sudden cool breeze on a stifling day. He sits down immediately, his movements sharp and purposeful, and begins to adjust the numbers in his ledger. He writes with a frantic yet controlled energy, his pen flying across the page as he reconciles the new data with his existing models. It is a moment of pure intellectual bliss, where the chaos of raw, messy observations suddenly falls into the elegant, predictable order of a mathematical system. He knows that he will need to verify this against the next few nights of observation, but the feeling of having finally found the thread is exhilarating. He is not merely a man recording data, he is a mind actively participating in the decoding of the cosmic language. The weariness that had been tugging at his limbs for the past hour evaporates, replaced by the sharp electric clarity of a discovery being made in real time. As the late afternoon gives way to the first cool whispers of evening, he feels a sudden profound sense of gratitude. He has been given the time, the resources, and the health to pursue this calling, and he does not take it for granted. He thinks of the people bustling in the streets below, lives shaped by worries and ambitions he can only dimly perceive. And he hopes that in some small, indirect way, his work will contribute to a world that is a little more understood, a little more orderly, and perhaps even a little more beautiful. He is not a man of religion in the traditional dogmatic sense. Yet he feels that his work is a form of worship, an acknowledgement of the sheer impossible scale of the universe and the privilege of being alive to witness even a fraction of it. He is a humble servant of the truth, and that is enough to sustain him. He rises and moves toward the window, watching the shadows deepen into the long, stretching forms of twilight. The stars are beginning to emerge, their cold, steady light piercing the haze of the horizon. They look different to him now, not as targets for his instruments, but as companions in his ongoing, quiet investigation. He knows that the night ahead will be cold, that the work will be demanding, and that he will likely finish at dawn with more questions than he had the day before. But that is the nature of his life, and he embraces it with an open, eager heart. He is a scholar in Isfahan, a watcher of the stars, a man whose existence is defined by the simple, beautiful, and eternal cycle of inquiry. As the last sliver of sunlight vanishes, leaving behind the dark, expectant velvet of the night, he turns toward his equipment, ready to begin again. The night descends with a velvet-heavy silence that seems to wrap itself around the scholar's balcony, insulating him from the lingering hum of the city below. He moves with a quiet, practiced deliberation, his hands finding the familiar contours of his brass astrolabe, even in the growing darkness. The air is crisp, carrying a faint, sharp scent of mountain snow that invigorates him, clearing the mental fog that often accompanies the end of a long day of study. He is acutely aware of the stillness, the way the world has paused in anticipation of the celestial rotation. He sets up his equipment, the tripod, the sighting bars, the delicate weights, and feels the familiar, reassuring rhythm of the routine. This is the moment of transition, the point at which he leaves behind the complexities of the human world and enters the pristine order domain of the heavens. He takes a moment to gaze upward, letting his eyes adjust to the brilliant, piercing clarity of the stars. In the distance, the constellations are beginning their slow, majestic migration across the meridian. He identifies his primary targets for the night, tracing their arcs in his mind's eye before ever putting an instrument to them. He feels a deep, abiding respect for these points of light. They have been there long before his birth and will continue to burn long after his memory has faded from this earth. He is merely a guest in their presence, a temporary witness to their eternal movement. The modesty of this role is a comfort to him. He does not seek to conquer or define the cosmos, only to observe and document it with the honesty and clarity that his craft demands. As he begins his first set of measurements, he notes a peculiar, subtle shift in the atmospheric refraction, a tiny adjustment he must account for in his calculations. He adjusts the dial on his astrolabe by a fraction of a degree, his fingers steady despite the biting cold. He is entirely focused, his consciousness narrowed to a singular point, the alignment of the site, the marking of the time, the recording of the value. There is no room in his mind for distraction. Every action is purposeful, every movement the result of years of training and a lifelong dedication to accuracy. He finds a strange, quiet joy in this intensity. When the data aligns, when the math balances, when the reality of the observation matches the theoretical model he has constructed in his journal, he feels a surge of satisfaction that is more potent than any earthly pleasure. The hours of the night bleed into one another. He works without pause, his only interruptions being the brief necessary moments when he retreats to his desk to transcribe his findings. The room is dimly lit by the flickering amber glow of a single tallow candle, which casts long dancing shadows against the shelves of parchment. He sits hunched over his work, the reed pen scratching steadily across the vellum. He is recording not just the data, but the feeling of the night, the quality of the light, the clarity of the horizon, the sense of communion he feels with the spheres above. He is building a narrative of his observations, a chronicle of his life as a seeker of truth. He finds that this act of writing is as vital as the observing itself. It is the way he cements his experience into history. Toward the deepest part of the night, when the world feels as though it has completely ceased to exist beyond the walls of his study, he experiences a moment of profound, wordless epiphany. He is looking at the path of a planet through his sight, and for a split second, the mathematics, the light, and the physical reality of the universe seem to collapse into a single cohesive truth. It is a feeling of overwhelming, terrifying, and beautiful clarity. He understands, on a level that defies language, the fundamental, elegant simplicity of the cosmic design. He remains in that state for a long time, the star centered in his view, his breath caught in his throat. It is a fleeting, precious glimpse of the infinite, and when it fades, he is left with a sense of peace that is so deep it feels physical. He knows that he has lived for this moment and that the rest of his life will be dedicated to the quiet, persistent work of trying to articulate it. He turns back to his journal, his hand trembling slightly with the weight of the realization, and begins to write, his thoughts flowing with a new urgent precision. He is a scholar in Isfahan, a witness to the divine order, and he has never felt more alive. The first pale ribbons of dawn begin to stretch across the eastern sky, painting the horizon in hues of soft lilac and burning nascent gold. The scholar remains on his balcony, the last of the starlight beginning to surrender to the overwhelming brightness of the sun. He is exhausted, his body aching with a deep bone-weary fatigue that has been accumulating over the long cold hours of his vigil. Yet, as he packs away his astrolabe for the final time this cycle, his mind is humming with a quiet, vibrant energy. The data he has gathered tonight, the series of precise, interconnected observations feels like the final pieces of a long-sought puzzle. He feels a profound, almost overwhelming sense of accomplishment. not because he has uncovered some great world-shaking secret, but because he has successfully navigated the complexities of his craft and arrived at a clearer, more nuanced understanding of the heavens. He moves slowly back into his study. The transition from the chill of the morning air to the lingering warmth of the room, acting like a physical weight upon him. He places the instrument case in its designated spot, the wood of the shelf cool and smooth beneath his fingertips. He does not rush. He treats each piece of equipment with the reverence of a monk handling holy relics. For him, they are instruments of truth, the physical manifestation of his intellectual devotion. He cleans his reed pen, dipping it into a small jar of water and drying it with a soft cloth before setting it aside to dry. He is closing the book on another night, another chapter in his life's work, and he finds that the ritual of finishing is just as important as the act of beginning. He sits at his desk and allows himself a few moments of complete, unburdened silence. The city of Isfahan is starting to wake, the distant sounds of life, a stray dog barking, the clatter of a cart on the cobblestones, the soft call of a merchant filtering through the heavy plaster walls. He listens to these sounds with a detached, serene interest. He is part of this city, yet he feels as though he lives on a different plane, his life governed by the rotation of the stars rather than the rhythm of the bazaar. It is a lonely existence, perhaps, but it is one he has chosen freely, and it brings him a level of fulfillment he cannot imagine finding anywhere else. He feels an immense quiet gratitude for the freedom to spend his days and nights in pursuit of this singular beautiful purpose. He gathers his notes, the vellum sheets neatly stacked and weighted down with a small brass paperweight. Tomorrow he will begin the process of synthesizing these latest findings into his grand ongoing table of motions. He envisions the completed work, a massive, meticulously documented tome that will stand as a monument to his lifetime of inquiry. He knows that he might never finish it, that the work is in its very nature an infinite endeavor, and he is perfectly content with that. The value of the pursuit is not in the completion, but in the doing. The journey toward understanding is what gives his life its structure and its meaning. As long as there are stars to watch and questions to ask, he has a reason to wake and a path to follow. He rises and walks to his sleeping mat, the heavy wool-woven blankets waiting like an old friend. He feels the fatigue pulling at his eyelids, a sweet, irresistible weight that promises a deep, restorative sleep. He thinks of the day ahead, the simple, quiet tasks, the reading, the correspondence, the anticipation of the next night, and he feels no dread, only a calm, patient acceptance of the cycle. He lies down the floor cool beneath him and feels the tension of the long night slowly seeping out of his muscles. He closes his eyes, the darkness of the room mirroring the darkness of the sky he has spent the night observing. As he drifts off, his mind is quiet, his heart is at peace, and he is once again the silent, dedicated watcher of the heavens, resting until the time comes for him to rise and begin the search all over again. The world continues its turn. The sun climbs higher, and the scholar finds his rest in the embrace of the truth he has spent his life seeking. The sun is high, a blazing orb in a pale blue sky, but within the thick walled confines of the scholar's study, the light is muted and cool, filtering through the intricate latticework of the wooden screens. He is currently engrossed in the delicate process of mapping the celestial equator, a task that requires a steady hand and a mind that can hold vast amounts of geometric data simultaneously. The air is still save for the faint sound of his own breathing and the occasional rustle of parchment as he shifts his work. There is no urgency in his movements. He operates with the knowledge that time is the one resource he has in abundance, provided he uses it with the discipline that his vocation demands. He has reached a stage in his life where the distinction between work and self has almost completely dissolved. He is the scholar, and the scholar is the work. He pauses, his red pen hovering over the page, and gazes out of the window at the distant shimmering heat rising from the rooftops of Isfahan. It is a world of flux, of people moving from one place to another, of goods being traded, of voices raised in anger or laughter. He views it with a gentle, detached empathy. He knows that his life of quiet observation is a luxury, a protected space made possible by the labor of others, and he accepts this with a quiet, solemn responsibility. His contribution to this bustling world is not in the form of action, but in the form of understanding. By documenting the movements of the heavens, he is helping to provide a framework for time, for navigation, and for the agricultural cycles that feed the very people he observes from his perch. It is a humble, necessary service, one that he performs with the same attention to detail that he gives to his own research. His thoughts return to his desk. He is working on a series of calculations that involve the intersection of planetary orbits, a project that is proving to be far more complex than his initial models had suggested. He does not find this frustrating. On the contrary, he welcomes the challenge. The complexity of the universe is a sign of its greatness, and the fact that he is able to grasp even a sliver of that complexity fills him with a sense of wonder. He dips his pen into the inkwell, the dark fluid clinging to the tip, and resumes his writing. The lines he draws are sharp and precise. The numbers he records are clean and unambiguous. He is creating a map of the laws that govern the stars, a testament to the order that persists even when the world below is in chaos. As the afternoon progresses, he prepares a small, simple meal, a handful of dried dates, a slice of flatbread, and a cup of water, eating with the same quiet efficiency that he brings to all his tasks. He sits on his cushion, savoring the subtle sweetness of the fruit, and allows his mind to wander. And he thinks of the astronomers of the past, the great thinkers of Greece, of India, and of his own tradition, who stood under the same sky and asked the same questions. He feels a profound, almost tangible connection to them. He is not alone in this. He is one in a long, unbroken lineage of observers who have dedicated their lives to the pursuit of truth. This realization brings him a sense of peace that is as vast and enduring as the heavens themselves. He is a link in a chain that stretches back into the dawn of human awareness, and he is determined to keep that link strong. He returns to his desk, but instead of continuing with his math, he picks up a book, an ancient treatise on the nature of light. He reads with a deep, focused intensity, his mind absorbing the complex arguments, analyzing the logic, and testing the theories against his own observations. He finds that even after all these years, he still has much to learn. The horizon of his understanding is constantly expanding, and he is eager to explore every inch of it. The sun begins to set, the light in the room shifting from a harsh white glare to a warm honeyed glow. He knows that soon the night will fall, the stars will appear, and he will once again be tasked with the responsibility of witnessing the celestial cycle. He feels a surge of anticipation, a gentle familiar excitement that never truly leaves him. He is a scholar in Isfahan, a man of the stars, and as the day fades into the coming night, he feels a deep, quiet, and profoundly satisfying readiness for whatever the heavens might choose to reveal. The twilight hour arrives with a gentle violet surrender, painting the stone walls of the study in shades of soft fading lavender. The scholar stands by the window, watching as the first stars, the harbingers of the deep black night, begin to pierce through the darkening veil of the horizon. He feels a familiar shift in his own consciousness, a shading of the day's intellectual labors, and an awakening of the nocturnal focus that defines his core identity. He is a man of the shadows as much as he is a man of the stars. The transition is seamless, a quiet movement from the analytical, paper-bound world of the day to the expansive, intuitive realm of the night. He gathers his cloak, the heavy dark wool, a familiar weight against his shoulders, and prepares to ascend to the balcony where the true work of his existence awaits. He moves with a silent, cat-like grace, his steps muted by the soft leather of his slippers on the tiled floor. He carries his instrument tray with a profound, almost tender care. Each component, the brass alidadi, the graduated plates, the precision needles, is a silent partner in his inquiry. As he steps out into the cool, biting air of the balcony, he pauses to breathe in the expansive desert-scented night. The city of Isfahan is a distant flickering luminescence beneath him, its chaotic energy contained by the vastness of the surrounding plateau. He feels a strange sense of detachment from the world below, a feeling that he is suspended somewhere between the terrestrial and the divine. This is his true home, this thin, precarious line between the earth and the infinite. He sets his equipment upon the stone parapet, the metal clinking softly in the stillness. He does not rush to begin. He stands for a long, silent moment, allowing the sheer, overwhelming majesty of the cosmos to wash over him. Above, the Milky Way is a glowing, ethereal river, a vast, swirling mystery that he has spent decades trying to map. He sees the constellations he has tracked for a lifetime, each a friend, a guide, a constant in a life characterized by flux. He realizes, as he has 1,000 times before, that his effort is ultimately a futile one. A human life is too short to capture the totality of the heavens. Yet, the futility does not depress him, it ennobles him. He is a testament to the human spirit, an individual committed to the pursuit of the unreachable simply because it is there. He begins his first observation, his eyes scanning the zenith with a practiced, sweeping motion before narrowing to the precise clinical scrutiny required for the measurement. He notes the coordinates, the atmospheric conditions, and the time, his reed pen moving across the vellum with an elegant rhythmic speed. There is a profound meditative beauty in this labor, a state of flow where the self disappears and only the act of documenting remains. He is in dialogue with the ancients and the future scholars alike, adding his own small meticulous drop into the ocean of collective knowledge. Each entry is a heartbeat in the long, slow life of his research. He feels a deep, quiet joy, a sense of belonging that he finds nowhere else in the waking world. As the night progresses, the cold intensifies, a sharp crystalline presence that seeps into his skin, yet he remains anchored, his mind burning with a clear, steady fire. He is tracking the motion of a particular wandering light, a planet that has been the focus of his inquiry for months. He is looking for a subtle repeating deviation in its orbital path, a pattern that he suspects will reveal a deeper underlying symmetry. The persistence of the observation is draining, requiring a level of concentration that is almost physical in its intensity. But he does not falter. He is a creature of endurance, a man whose life is measured in degrees and minutes of arc. When he finally captures the data point he has been hunting, he feels a surge of triumph that is silent, sharp, and absolute. It is the victory of a mind that has refused to give up, the satisfaction of a hypothesis refined by the relentless, unblinking truth of the stars. He stands back from the instrument, his chest rising and falling in the stillness, and gazes up at the vast, uncaring, beautiful dome of the night. He is a scholar in Isfahan, a witness to the unfolding of time, and he is content to remain here, in the cold and the dark, until the very first sign of the dawn demands that he return to the earth. The dawn does not arrive in a sudden burst of light, but in a gradual, almost whispered transformation of the horizon from the deep, impenetrable black of the abyss to the soft, pale violet of the waking world. The scholar stands by the parapet, his body long accustomed to the bite of the mountain air at these hours. He has been standing there for the better part of the night, his eyes fixed on the retreating constellations, his mind a crystalline repository of the data he has just collected. The transition to the new day is for him not a conclusion but a pivot. He feels the weight of the night's findings, a collection of precise, handwritten notations that will, in time, be integrated into his greater project. His fingers are stiff, the joints aching from the prolonged rigidity of his stance. Yet there is a lightness in his chest, a quiet, triumphant resonance that comes only after a night of successful, focused inquiry. He begins the process of securing his equipment, his hands moving with the economy of a man who knows every gear, every screw, every delicate lens by heart. The brass astrolabe is wiped clean of the fine, almost imperceptible film of condensation that has settled upon it, then tucked securely into its velvet-lined box. The tripod is folded, the heavy dark iron legs echoing with a dull thud against the stone floor. Each movement is a closing prayer to the stars that he has just been measuring. He does not treat these instruments as mere objects. They are his companions in the silence, the extensions of his own senses that allow him to touch the heavens. He leaves the balcony, walking back into the sanctuary of his study, the transition into the warmer, airless interior marking the boundary between the cosmic and the mundane. Once inside, he does not immediately seek sleep. Instead, he settles at his central desk, the candles having burned down to small sputtering stumps of wax. He lights a new one, the flame flickering and then holding, casting a warm golden glow over his work. He pulls his journal forward, the heavy vellum pages inviting him to ground his memories of the night into the permanence of ink. He writes with a deliberate, steady pace, his script flowing in the graceful, intricate loops of the language he has mastered over a lifetime. He finds that this act of documentation is where the true understanding occurs. The observation is merely the raw material, but the writing is the forge. As he pens the final values for the night, he feels the familiar, deep-seated satisfaction of a task executed with total, uncompromising integrity. The city outside is beginning to stir with its daily rhythm, the distant, muffled sound of the call to prayer drifting in from the city's heart. He hears it and acknowledges it as a rhythmic marker of the passage of human time, a parallel structure to the one he has been tracking above. He finds a sense of harmony in this. The earthly and the celestial are not opposed, but two sides of the same grand unfolding reality. He is an inhabitant of both. He stands and goes to the window, watching the first true, direct sunlight hit the turquoise domes of the mosques below, turning them into radiant, glowing jewels. It is a sight he has seen thousands of times, yet it never loses its power to move him. The symmetry, the geometry, the sheer, intentional beauty of the architecture reflects the very same laws he finds in the movements of the planets. He returns to his sleeping mat, the wool heavy and cool, and wraps himself in it with the practiced, efficient motions of a man who values his rest as much as his work. The fatigue that has been held at bay by the intensity of his focus now descends, a warm, thick blanket that pulls at his limbs. He does not fight it. He closes his eyes and allows the silence of the room to envelop him, his thoughts slowing to a stop, his breathing falling into the steady, predictable cadence of deep slumber. He is a scholar of Isfahan, a seeker of truths that lie beyond the veil of the visible, and he is content, for he knows that when he wakes, the sky will still be there, the stars will still be turning, and the quest to understand them will as always be waiting for his return. The light in the room grows warmer. The dust motes dance in the quiet, and he drifts into the stillness, a man at peace with the infinite, resting until the cycle begins again. The midday sun casts a sharp, unyielding glare against the plastered walls of the scholar's sanctuary, yet inside the temperature remains tempered and cool, a testament to the thick, ancient masonry of the building. The scholar sits at his desk, his posture perfectly aligned, his mind operating with the quiet, sustained focus of a long-burning lamp. Before him lies an extensive collection of charts, a cartography of the night sky that he has been refining over the course of many years. His task today is one of reconciliation. He is comparing the observations he gathered during the past week against the established models of the ancient masters. It is a painstaking, granular effort, a matter of checking every single degree, every minute of arc, ensuring that the empirical reality he has observed matches the mathematical theoretical framework he is building. He does not mind the monotony of it. To him, this is not a tedious chore, but an intimate conversation with the history of human thought. He dips his quill into the ink, the motion fluid and well practiced, and makes a small, neat notation in the margin of his ledger. He pauses, looking at the correction. It is a tiny, almost invisible change, a fraction of a fraction, but it represents a significant leap in accuracy. A sense of profound, quiet contentment washes over him. This is the nature of his existence, the slow, deliberate, and entirely unglamorous process of bringing the world of human knowledge into closer alignment with the actual behavior of the universe. He feels a deep, soul-level camaraderie with those who came before him, the thinkers who sat in their own dusty, quiet rooms, struggling with the same complexities, driven by the same singular and ultimately selfless desire to know. He is not merely a scholar, he is a custodian of a flickering, enduring light. Outside, the city of Isfahan continues its frantic, vibrant life. He can hear the distant melodic cries of the street vendors, the rhythmic clanging of a blacksmith's hammer, and the occasional sharp exchange of voices from the street below. He views this too as part of the data, the pulse of the terrestrial world, a reminder that his pursuit of the celestial does not detach him from the reality of his time or place. He is a man grounded in the earth, and it is precisely this connection that makes his upward-looking perspective so necessary. Without the understanding of the stars, the life below would be adrift, lacking a map for time and direction. He is the one who monitors the clockwork of the cosmos, so that others may live their lives with a sense of order and purpose. It is a role he embraces with a quiet, solemn, and deeply felt responsibility. He pauses his work to eat, his meal a simple meditative ritual, fresh bread, a handful of olives, and a bowl of cool, clear water. He eats slowly, allowing the taste and the texture of the food to anchor him in the present moment. He then stands and wanders to the far side of his study where his library is housed. He runs his hand over the spines of the books, leather bound, worn by years of use, containing the collective wisdom of his tradition. He pulls one down, an ancient treatise on geometry, and finds a place to sit by the window. He does not read it for information, for he has memorized its contents long ago. He reads it for the beauty of its logic, for the elegance of its proofs. He is constantly amazed by how the mind, through the simple application of reason, can grasp the truths that govern the vastness of the heavens. It is a miracle that never fails to move him. As the sun begins its descent, turning the afternoon light into a deep, honey gold, he feels a familiar, persistent anticipation building within him. The day is nearly done, and with its passing comes the return of the only world that truly matters to him, the world of the night. He is ready to return to the balcony, to set up his instruments and to engage with the reality of the stars once more. The work of the day has been necessary, but it is merely the preparation for the night's deeper, more direct inquiry. He stands and gathers his notes, his movements efficient and purposeful. He feels no fatigue, only a quiet, steady, and profound clarity. He is a scholar in Isfahan, a man of the stars, and as the light fades from the room, he feels a sense of deep, abiding harmony with the life he has chosen. He is exactly where he is meant to be, participating in the vast, unfolding, and eternal dialogue that is the human experience of the cosmos. He turns toward his equipment, ready to greet the night with the same steady, unwavering devotion he brings to everything else in his life. The night arrives with a suddenness that feels intentional, a swift descent of shadow that swallows the city of Isfahan and leaves the scholar's balcony suspended in the dark. The transition is not merely a change in lighting, it is a profound shift in his entire physiology. The tension of the day, The small, precise, and analytical pressures of his scholarly work evaporates, replaced by a deep, expansive alertness that feels almost like a form of grace. He stands at the parapet, his back straight, his eyes already tracing the familiar geometry of the constellations as they emerge from the indigo void. He is in this moment a singular observer, a point of awareness at the center of a grand celestial rotation. The coldness of the night air is a welcome, bracing sensation, a reminder of the physical reality that anchors him even as his mind travels to the furthest reaches of the observable universe. He begins his ritual with the familiar, slow assembly of his tools. Each piece of brass, each sighting rod, and each carefully balanced counterweight is treated with a reverence that borders on the sacred. He does not need a candle to see what he is doing. His hands move with an intuitive, memory-laden grace, finding the notches and the screws in the dark. He is perfectly in tune with his environment, a symbiotic presence on the rooftop. When the astrolabe is finally positioned to the meridian, he feels a sense of quiet triumph. The instrument is not just an object, it is an extension of his own intent. He checks the alignment against a reference star, his breathing slowing until it matches the steady, rhythmic pulse of the clockwork that governs the night. He is ready to begin the long, patient work of observation. The first target is a distant pale star, whose transit he has been documenting for many months. He aligns the sight, his gaze narrowing to a fine sharp point, and waits. The atmosphere is exceptionally clear, the air thin and still, and the star glitters with a steady, unblinking intensity. He records the time, the altitude, and the precise moment of intersection with the meridian, his hand moving with a practiced elegant speed across the vellum. There is no urgency in his work, yet there is an intense, unwavering focus. He is not merely recording data. He is capturing the fleeting moment in which the theoretical map of the universe aligns with the empirical reality of the heavens. It is a profound, deeply satisfying act, a way of anchoring the ephemeral vast beauty of the cosmos into the enduring, readable archive of human knowledge. As the hours pass, the world below falls completely silent. The city of Isfahan, with its noise, its commerce, and its human, transient struggles, seems a world away, a memory from a different life. He is alone with the vast dark canopy, and the solitude is not a weight, but a sanctuary. He finds that in the silence, his mind clears to an almost preternatural level. He can hold complex, multi-layered equations in his head. He can visualize the orbital paths of planets as if they were threads of light woven through the air, and he can feel the subtle, elegant pulse of the cosmic design. It is a state of being that he has sought his entire life, a form of communion that transcends language and logic. He is a part of the universe, observing the universe, and in that realization, he finds a peace that is absolute and unshakable. Toward the end of the night, as the first faint suggestion of dawn begins to touch the eastern horizon, he performs a final, comprehensive check of his work. The data is consistent, the entries are clear, and the findings are, he realizes with a quiet surge of joy, potentially transformative. He has identified a previously unnoticed secondary oscillation in the orbit of his target, a subtle rhythmic deviation that could explain the small, lingering discrepancies he has been struggling with for years. It is a moment of profound, wordless clarity. He has seen something that no one else has noticed, a new layer of the cosmic mystery revealed through the simple, patient application of his craft. He packs his instruments away, the motion slow and respectful. He walks to the edge of the balcony one last time, looking out as the stars begin to dim, their brilliance conceding to the inevitable rise of the sun. He feels no sadness in the departure of the night, only a deep abiding gratitude. He has touched the infinite, and in return, the infinite has granted him a tiny precious fragment of its truth. He knows that his name may not endure and his ink may fade to dust, but the truth he has documented, the very rhythm of the spheres, is eternal. He is but a fleeting spark in the vastness, yet he has burned with purpose. He turns back to his study, closing the heavy wooden door behind him, ready to let the world continue its turn. He has played his part in the grand, silent symphony of existence, and for the first time in his long life, he feels entirely, beautifully complete. The work is done, the mystery remains, and he is at last ready to sleep, knowing that the stars will be waiting, just as they always have, when the darkness calls him back again.
Sleepy History with Theodore is created for relaxation, entertainment, and sleep purposes. The stories shared on this channel are inspired by historical events, daily life, and real periods in history. But they may be simplified, adapted, or narrated in a calming way to enhance the listening experience. This content is not intended to be a precise academic or educational source. While we aim to stay generally accurate, some details may be altered for storytelling flow and relaxation. Please do not rely on this channel as a primary source for historical research or study. By listening, you acknowledge that this content is designed to help you unwind, relax, and fall asleep. Thank you for your understanding and support.